Welcome to part 8 of What If Kami sends Naruto back in time to fix his mistakes. Please remember to like and subscribe as it motivates me to upload more in the future, and as always link to the fanfiction is in the description. Invasion and upheaval. Projecting his voice, Naruto shouted, "The forest grows dark in the day. To the enemies of Konoha, stand down or the Tsuchikage's granddaughter dies." Onoki had stood up and was clutching the rails of the cage's box. That wasn't a genin down there, it was a monster. When his granddaughter was completely immobilized, he hesitated, knowing that it was too early to launch the invasion. Then the boy just challenged him, and he could feel the Hokage, Kazekage and Raikage beginning to rise. Fuck. Orochimaru, from his position as Onoki's guard, saw things fall apart and knew that he needed to prematurely activate his invasion. He gave a hand signal to Kabuto and his hidden guards before he threw four super dense smoke bombs down on the ground of the booth. He darted forward and grabbed the third Hokage and jumped onto the roof of the stadium. He saw Jirobo, one of his biggest guards, with his curse mark activated as he threw the Kazekage up toward the roof as well. His Sound 4 fixed themselves into position and erected a barrier technique, 4 violet flames formation, around the designated battlefield. When all was said and done, Onoki was floating above Orochimaru, and they were backed up by 20 sound Jonin. Across the rooftop from them was Itachi, Hiruzen, Raza and I. "Go, my loyal shinobi, buy me time to activate my jutsu," Orochimaru hissed, which prompted the 20 sound Jonin to dart toward the cages. I cracked his neck and punched his fists together before he bellowed out in his loudest voice, "Kumo fights with Konoha." Then he dashed forward, encased in his lightning armor, to engage the incoming enemy. "Itachi, this is my fight. Back me up. Try to find a way out of the barrier to lead our forces," Hiruzen said, throwing off his cage cloak and emerging as his old-school battle uniform. Raza had dark rings form around his eyes as gold dust began pouring out of a seal on his arm. "I will assist the Raikage." As the smoke bombs went off in the Hokage's box, feathers fell over the arena and captured the civilians and genin in a wide-scale gust that induced sleep. Naruto saw this, condensed his chakra and then emitted it in a single, powerful pulse to dispel the genjutsu. That was one of Orochi Tem's plans foiled. However, that momentary distraction provided the opportunity for nearly 20 Iwa Jonin to surround Naruto. He sensed some incoming reinforcements, but he would need to deal with the enemies that were currently surrounding him. The fight was fast and violent as Naruto dodged and weaved through earth jutsus, kunai, shuriken and many other attacks. One thing was for certain, the Iwa Jonin were not expecting the level of speed, reaction time and power that Naruto was currently bringing to the table. He had shown no mercy as he dodged around and countered attacks with his own arsenal. After collecting enough chakra and determining enemy positions, Naruto rolled out of the way of an earth bullet, and placed his hands on the ground while calling out, "Mokuden, pit of wooden spikes." The ground fell out from under a group of 5 Iwa Jonin, and they screamed as they fell and were met by sharp wooden spikes that impaled them all over their bodies. Han had dispatched 2 Konoha Jonin when the chaos began, and he was making his way to the arena. After a brief tussle with Might Guy, he sent the eccentric green beast flying with a steam-powered kick. He saw his fellow Iwa shinobi and sound allies fighting around the arena, but they were outmatched. They needed to turn the tides of battle. He flashed into a 3-tailed cloak, the maximum that he could force out of Kokuo, and dashed to the arena floor. Temari had gathered Samui, Karui, Omoi and Yugito, and they were attempting to reinforce Naruto on the stadium floor. The fighting was fierce throughout the stadium, but it was clear to her that the Iwa Jonin were the only threats. The sound shinobi were poorly trained one-trick ponies, and they couldn't stand up to her or Team Yugito. Temari saw a red cloak with 3 tails emerge around Han and she saw him moving toward Naruto. Her body moved on its own as she performed a wind shunshin and appeared immediately behind Naruto. Han was nearly to the Kyuubi's Jinchuriki and he collected steam into his arm and flung it forward with the intent to snuff the life out of his primary objective and save Kuretsuchi. He saw the boy was on the ground with his back turned as he cast yet another jutsu that took out 3 of the remaining Iwa Jonin. Suddenly, Han saw the Suna Kunoichi appear in between him and his target, but his fist was already in motion, propelled by the potent steam power of Kokuo. The sound of shearing metal followed by a fleshy squelching sound echoed through the chaos of the arena. Naruto was fighting off the Iwa Jonin and it was getting easier to avoid their attacks as their numbers dwindled. He saw two of them attempting to remove Kuretsuchi from her tree binding and formed a snake seal, which made the tree surrounding Kuretsuchi sprout two wooden spikes that tore through the Iwa Jonin's flak jackets like a bullet through target paper. He dodged out of the way of a kick from another Jonin, and he lashed out with Ryuhoko, the blade he received from Tempest, and severed the forearm of said Jonin. He then channeled wind chakra into the blade before swiping horizontally and throwing a wind blade at stomach height that bisected three Iwa Jonin that were moving toward him. Naruto felt the surge of Kokuo's chakra and knew the real battle would begin soon, but he still had too many enemies right in front of him to deal with. After lashing out with his wind blade and killing those three Jonin, he felt Han's chakra closing fast and then he heard the sound of shearing metal and flesh being torn. His senses told him what happened before he turned around, but his mind refused to believe it. He couldn't believe it. He wouldn't believe it. Naruto's head turned and saw Han standing with his arm extended and he could see his hand covered in red chakra emerging out of the back of a kunoichi with four sandy blonde buns. In that moment, Naruto's world turned red. In that moment, death would be unleashed upon the world. In that moment, Han realized that he just fucked up. The whole battlefield stilled as a terrible, visible, potent ping of red chakra spread around Konoha. Everyone froze as the chakra ring expanded at the speed of sound and heads turned towards the point of origin. A second after the pulse was released, a dome of blood red, potent chakra formed around Naruto and a pillar of red chakra shot into the sky. Civilians and dignitaries around the stadium froze mid-step in their evacuation efforts when they felt the sinister ping of out-of-control Biju chakra. Fear, overwhelming fear, with a dash of hopelessness overwhelmed their senses and demanded all of their attention. Their heads turned mechanically, eyes widened in fear, urine flowed down legs, heart spasmed uncontrollably and ration fled. What was once a controlled evacuation effort became a mad dash away from the source of their fear. In the evacuation bunkers, civilians and younger ninja teams experienced similar reactions to the civilians in the arena. Despite being protected by hundreds of feet of earth within the Hokage monument, terror saturated every cell of their being. People fainted, crumpled to the ground in sniveling messes, shook with fear and latched onto loved ones. After the first minute of shock wore off, terrified screams filled the bunker. Nobody could calm the fear in their hearts and thus pandemonium reigned supreme. The overall result, inside the barriers, scared whispers started, and rumors fueled by speculation began to spread. Ino was working with Team 10, Hinata and Shino to evacuate the civilians toward the nearest safe zone. Asuma was in charge and was handling most of the fighting, but she was already bloody from fights that she was forced to take. She had just protected a mother and child from some sound thug when she felt the pulse of chakra. Her head immediately turned toward the arena and her heart was overwhelmed with fear for Naruto. Something had gone wrong, something had gone terribly, terribly wrong. Asuma snapped her out of it and returned her focus to the mission, but it was difficult to ignore the sinister feeling that fell over the stadium. Hikari, Rias and Yosuke froze from within the daimyo's barrier and their heads turned toward Naruto. As the pulse spread through the arena and penetrated the barrier, they were each forcibly drawn back into the mindscape. The wood clones they were occupying disintegrated as they lost the will to hold their form, which earned curious looks from those in the booth. As they entered into a chaotic mindscape, they saw Kurama attempting to fight and restrain his chakra, but it was futile. Kurama was watching from the cottage inside the seal as his partner dismantled the enemy forces. The sun burned intensely and the whole mindscape vibrated with energy and senjutsu chakra as his host drew upon the might of his potent chakra to combat his enemies. Suddenly, he saw Temari's form through the mental link and everything went crazy inside the seal. Kurama was forced into his fox form. The mindscape went black with a blood-red moon that somehow pierced through the fierce chakra storm that emerged out of nowhere. Kurama was fighting the pull of his chakra, which was creating the chakra storm. Suddenly, he saw Naruto's unconscious form and he took up a defensive position around his partner and continued to attempt to close the chakra link. Tsunade was down in the medical bay where the injured finalists were being treated when she felt the chakra pulse followed by the potent flare of Kurama's chakra. It was clear to her that something bad happened and Naruto had lost control. When he was in control, Kurama's chakra felt warm, protective and overwhelmingly powerful. This chakra felt enraged, sinister and bloodthirsty. Tsunade focused chakra to her fist and unleashed a potent wave of it on 4 frozen sound shinobi. They were splattered against the wall before the tunnels of the stadium were blown away from the force of Tsunade's punch. She dashed through her newly created tunnel and out into the arena. Shinobi around Konoha froze as a familiar, sinister aura nearly caused them to shit their pants. Their hearts beat rapidly and they nearly short-circuited when memories of 13 years ago flashed through their minds. The vile chakra of the Kyuubi had returned to Konoha and they were beyond terrified. In the middle of counter-invasion operations, shinobi either froze or pulled upon their will to overcome their fear. That day, many Konoha shinobi would permanently brand themselves as heroes that overcame their fears or cowards that gave into the trauma of their pasts. 5 seconds after the chakra surrounded Naruto, Han had remained frozen stiff in fear with his hand still holding Temari's lifeless body. He removed his hand from her chest and let her fall unceremoniously to the arena floor, which was a big fucking mistake. As if the ominous chakra could feel what happened, a blood-red, wooden tail covered in potent red chakra shot out of the chakra ball and slammed into Han. Han was sent flying into the arena wall, only alive due to his own chakra shroud and the instant reaction that allowed him to block the sudden attack. As the dark chakra ball faded, Naruto could be seen in his stage 2 transformation. All of his skin was melted off, his body was composed of blood red and black chakra, 8 tails waved about frantically behind him, fox ears made of chakra bone were fixed upon his head, his nails were overgrown like fearsome kitsune claws, his face was distorted as a cracked mouth appeared and let out an ear-piercing roar. As the stage 2 transformation started to settle over Naruto, there were bones forming over his black and red body and a fox head snapped into place over Naruto's own. The pupils of this chakra form were a solid black sclera with a single red slit in the center of the black orbs. Yami Naruto had returned to wreak vengeance upon the world. As is operating on instinct, the cubified Naruto disappeared and reappeared above Han as he attempted to free himself from the arena wall. Yami appeared above Han and slammed 2 linked fists down on the Iwa Jinchuriki's head. A massive dust cloud filled the arena as a 50-meter crater was formed. Yami continued pummeling the stunned Han with a fearsome barrage of fists and tails. Each strike sent a shockwave of chakra and power echoing through the crater. Digging deeper and deeper into the arena floor, Yami continued his assault of the defenseless form of Han. Han was able to shake off some of the disorientation after he dodged out of another crippling blow that sent earth, dust and bits of the stadium flying. He righted himself and was able to condense some steam within his body to prepare for a counterattack. Within the veil of the dust cloud, Han waited for his opportunity as the enraged Kyuubi Jinchuriki locked onto his new position and lunged at him. Han felt his power swell from the steam gourd on his back as he channeled the powerful medium through his back and arm. His fist connected with Yami's face and cracked some of the bone skull that was forming around the rampaging Jinchuriki. Yami was sent careening into the stadium wall despite using his tails to slow his flight. With a shake of his head and a roar, Yami darted back toward Han once more. This time, the Mokuden tails blocked Han's attack before Yami condensed potent yokai around his right hand and launched a counterattack into Han's abdomen. Han folded over Yami's fist like laundry in a monastery before coughing up a sizable quantity of blood that spattered Yami's feet. Before Han could react, another double hammer fist slammed into the back of his head to propel his face into the dirt and create another crater. Han couldn't think clearly, each blow carried staggering force and Kokuo's chakra could no longer protect him against the might of the Kyuubi. Han continued to try and pull Kokuo's chakra, but even if he had all 5 tails, it would still be vastly inferior to the 8 tails of Kyuubi's chakra that were laying into him. He had tried to keep a defensive form, his mind unable to react or do anything other than defend. The steam and Biju chakra he was emitting in an attempt to defend himself was scattered by each deadly blow. After another minute of pummeling Kokuo's container, Yami threw his head back and let out a bestial roar that echoed around Konoha. Yami picked Han up by his throat, the Iwa veteran no longer shrouded in his chakra cloak. Yami was choking the life out of the man that had robbed him off his soulmate. Completely overwhelmed by grief, anger and hatred, Yami let loose another roar into Han's face. The concussive force inflicting more damage on the nearly dead Jinchuriki. Yami couldn't contain his rage, he couldn't stop the overwhelming sorrow that poured out from the hole in his shattered soul. He threw Han up in a fit of rage and Eight Tails chased the airborne form of the Iwa Jinchuriki. Eight Tails ripped into Han's now lifeless form and held him suspended in the air over the arena. Blood-red Mokuden tails ripped into each arm, 2 tails impaled the torso, 1 in the groin and 1 in the neck. With a roar, Yami shredded Iwa's Jinchuriki into pieces and closed his eyes as Han's blood rained down on his face. Caught in a moment of brief reprieve, Yami basked in the bloody essence of his slain foe. With another bestial roar, Yami darted toward the barrier where he felt some familiar chakra. Earlier in the barrier, Orochimaru had finished his jutsu as 2 of his sound Jonin remained standing. Onoki had held off Raza and Hiruzen with liberal application of his dust release. 5 coffins emerged from the ground and Hiruzen formed an earth and fire combination jutsu to stop the 4th coffin from emerging. The earth and fire dragon slammed into the 4th coffin before it could open, but that was the only one that could be stopped. Hashirama Senju, Tobirama Senju, Mito Uzumaki and Kushina Uzumaki stepped out for the 4 remaining coffins. Their forms appeared cracked, their skin pale, the bodies were mere husks in the visage of their former selves. What are we doing here? Where are we? Hashirama asked while looking around manically. Tobirama sighed while Mito looked adoringly at her husband. Easy dear, it appears that your brother did not heed your warning. I sense we are back in Konoha, if all of these chakra signatures are what I think they are. Tobirama growled, I created the jutsu to talk to fallen comrades lost in important missions. How should I know it would be used in such a manner? Hiruzen watched his previous mentors in a state of stunned disbelief. It was too much for him to take in. Sensei. His cracked voice escaped him and garnered the attention of the newly resurrected. Hashirama turned and beamed a smile at Hiruzen. Oh, Hiruzen, how are you so old? Tobirama face-palmed, brother, clearly much time has passed since our deaths. This didn't deter Hashirama, and my village is still standing. And look at that, Tobi. And Uchiha is the Hokage. Hashirama said proudly, giving a thumbs up to Itachi. Raza and Itachi watched the bizarre conversation among legends. It was then that I noticed the silent figure. Kushina. Is that you? Kushina looked toward I and smiled. Unlike the others, her skin seemed healthy and there were no cracks in her form. Hello again, I. Thank you for helping to defend Konoha. You are not here to defend Konoha. Orochimaru dashed forward and placed 3 kunai into the back of Hashirama's, Tobirama's and Mito's heads. He attempted to put one in Kushina, but he was forced to dodge backwards as chains escaped her body and attempted to pierce him. How are you resisting my jutsu? Kushina jumped over to the side of the other cage, turned around and smirked devilishly at Orochimaru. Easy, my soul is never, and will never be, under your control. She thanked Kami for this opportunity mentally. Orochimaru growled and ordered the resurrected souls to attack his enemies. They were about to engage in combat when an ominous pulse of chakra halted the imminent battle and gathered everyone's attention. That's the Kyuubi's chakra, Mito said while looking toward the source of the chakra pulse. And it is powerful and out of control. Tobirama added. Onoki floated up and paled when he saw the cubified Yami beating down Han. Orochimaru, we need to hurry up. The boy has 8 tails, and he is in his stage 2 form. He is ripping Han apart. Kushina looked concerned over towards her Sochi before her attention snapped back to her resurrected enemies. I will take Mito. I am the only one that can counter her combat fuinjutsu. I smashed his fist into an open hand. I always wanted to fight Tobirama. Raza looked at Itachi, think you could hold off Lord first? I have an old goat to gut. Itachi nodded. Hiruzen summoned Enma and had him take his staff form. Very well, Orochimaru, it is high time I corrected my past mistakes. A pitched, multifaceted battle ensued. Jutsus were flung around freely, and carnage reigned supreme on the stadium roof for the next 5 minutes. The barrier was the only thing protecting Konoha from multiple S-rank jutsus that were powered by some of the most powerful shinobi of all time. The barrier was only 100 meter by 50 meters, which didn't leave quite enough room for 5 S-ranked battles to take place without clashing into one another. Hashirama's prodigious use of the Mokuden created a forest that was destroyed a minute later as Raza dodged Onoki's dust release. I sent Tobirama flying through trees only for him to reform and use a high-powered water jutsu to slice through trees as I dodged the attack. Kushina and Mito pitched Uzumaki-style Fuinjutsu battle, creating explosions from Kushina and molecular disintegration from Mito. It was complete and total pandemonium within the barrier. In comparison to these fights, the fight between Orochimaru and Hiruzen was fairly stale. Bow versus sword clashed, with Enma complaining every now and then about taking damage from the legendary Kusanagi sword wielded by Orochimaru. Every now and then, the two would exchange jutsu that proved completely ineffective, despite looking fairly flashy. Hiruzen jumped back onto a tree grown by Hashirama to take a moment and catch his breath. That was when he noticed something red and menacing coming through the barrier. Yami had reveled in the blood of the five-tailed Jinchuriki for a couple seconds before he darted off in search of his next target, a target he decided was responsible for the death of his soulmate. He could feel the influence of the alternate personalities in Kurama trying to regain control, but he wouldn't give it back until his vengeance had been taken. With single-minded determination, Yami launched himself at the barrier. Eight tails made primarily of Mokudan chakra that was sucked up by Kurama's chakra ripped into the barrier. The purplish barrier wavered as the tails penetrated it, and then Yami gave a mighty roar and pulled the barrier apart. An Anbu squad had posted themselves next to the purple barrier after watching one of their comrades burn alive after simply touching the barrier. As they were trying to discover a way through, they felt the chakra ping before the overwhelming pressure of the Kyuubi's chakra froze them in place. They were unable to avert their eyes from the brutal pounding that the Senju boy imposed on Iwa's Jinchuriki. Their eyes widened and jaws dropped when they watched the Iwa veteran get dismembered in a brutal fashion. "Holy shit, Captain. How are we going to stop that thing?" a boar-masked Anbu asked his leader in a stunned and terrified voice. Hawk was broken out of his shock by his subordinate's question. I don't know. We need to find a way through this barrier first and foremost. This is the Four Violet Flames formation barrier. We cannot break through, and if we attempt to meddle with it, well, you saw what happened to Bear, Cat said. Well, we can't. Holy shit. Hawk shouted as Yami's tails impaled through the barrier. Hawk watched as the tails forced their way through with a wiggle. It looked like some terrifying snake writhing out of its hole before Hawk heard Yami roar. As Konoha's Jinchuriki roared, Hawk watched the barrier begin to pixelate, then crack and finally shatter. With a mighty crack, the arena side of the barrier shattered into millions of shards and pixels of residual chakra that led to a chain reaction of the barrier disintegrating. The backlash of the barrier being forcibly destroyed rendered the Sound Four momentarily unconscious due to the sudden drain and backlash of their chakra. Through the disintegrating barrier, a red blur moved with startling speed towards where Yami could sense an old and dusty-feeling chakra. Onoki was floating above the earth, dodging clouds and clumps of gold dust that were threatening him. It had been years since he engaged in such a battle, and even 10 minutes of operating at nearly full capacity was taking its toll on the ancient Tsuchikage. He darted through the air to avoid multiple golden spears when he processed the barrier shattering. He knew their time was up and he needed to break contact and join the invading forces. As he had this thought, a red chakra-covered fist sent him careening into one of the few Mokudan trees that were standing. Yami enjoyed every millisecond that his fist connected with the Tsuchikage. The power of Kyuubi's chakra urged him forward and fueled his rage. He would never stop until he had his revenge. Yami landed from his voyage through the air, skid for a couple meters and immediately dashed toward where Onoki was recovering from the surprise blow. Yami was forced to dodge a ray of dust-release chakra that disintegrated a tree behind his position. As Yami closed the distance, he saw a square cube of dust-release chakra hovering in between Onoki's two old hands. He was too close and moving too fast to dodge, so as Onoki released the attack, Yami folded his tails in front of him and absorbed the impact of the potent jutsu. It hurt. It burnt the chakra-covered skin of Yami as Kurama's chakra fought against the disintegrating effects of the dust-release jutsu. Eventually, the Jinchuriki won out and sent a tail extending toward a panting Onoki. Onoki couldn't believe it. This damn demon boy ruined everything. He had already captured his granddaughter, foiled the invasion by forcing its preemptive activation, killed one of his Jinchuriki, and now he had become the first beast to ever survive his dust release. Then a burning tail slammed into his gut and knocked him on his back for the second time in the fight. Onoki rolled and dodged a tail that attempted to impale him, but the second, third, fourth and fifth tails connected. Yami took great pleasure as his chakra tails impaled the ugly midget of a man. His screams were pure joy to Yami's ears, his writhing sent shivers of pleasure through Yami's tails and right up his spine. The corrosive chakra eating the Tsuchikage alive by killing every living thing it touched combined with the chakra-absorbing effects of the Mokuden tails took a heavy toll on the Tsuchikage. Orochimaru saw the barrier shattering and he saw his sensei struggling to catch his breath. He wanted more time to drag out his torture, he wanted to savor the death of his perceived betrayer. Once again, the Senju brat interferes with his plans and denies him the ability to savor the moment. He molded a great quantity of chakra before he hunched over and spewed out an uncountable number of snakes by using his formation of 10,000 snakes jutsu, so I guess the count would be roughly 10,000. As Hiruzen prepared a jutsu to counter this, Orochimaru used his hiding in the surface jutsu to phase into the ground. Hiruzen countered the innumerable snakes with a wide-scale regal fire dragon jutsu. The regal variant was approximately 3 times larger and stronger than the normal fire dragon and it consumed a considerable amount of chakra. Hiruzen spouted the regal dragon and flames descended on the writhing mass of snakes that seemed to have swords sticking out of their mouths. As the last of the oxygen left his lungs, the jutsu died down showing that only ashes remained of the impromptu summons. Hiruzen scanned the battlefield, and he couldn't locate his student. He knew Orochimaru was slippery and there was no way he would have been caught in such an obvious jutsu. He saw Hashirama get released from the impure world resurrection as Itachi's reddish-orange Susanoo stabbed him with the sword of Tatsuka, sealing the Hokage's soul into the Susanoo's gourd until such a time that Itachi released it. That momentary distraction cost him dearly as Orochimaru emerged out of the tree behind him and stabbed him with the Kusanagi. He noticed too late that his student had taken his back and he was unable to completely dodge the Kusanagi that stabbed through his right shoulder. He managed to prevent a scream from escaping his throat and his good arm grabbed his student's left arm. Sarutobi breathed out a small, dense cloud of ash and clicked his teeth to ignite the explosion, which blew him apart from his student. Kushina was battling with Mito in a high-stakes battle and was having a tough time dealing with her predecessor despite Mito holding back quite a bit. The battle continued after the barrier shattered until Kushina was finally able to trap Mito in her sealing chains. Kushina gave her a brief but heartwarming goodbye before her adamantine chains dug into her head and removed the kunai tag that was anchoring her soul to the sacrificed body. The body crumbled to dust and Mito's soul waved goodbye as it returned to the pure world. As Kushina caught her breath and took stock of things, she saw her Sochi in his eight-tailed state standing over a downed opponent. Without thinking and with her chains still flailing, she darted towards her son. As she got closer, she saw that he had tails that looked eerily like her chakra chains, and they were impaled in the Tsuchikage. Well, shit, here's to the start of the Fourth Great War. Kushina extended her chains and began to wrap her Sochi in each of his tails, struggling against the concentrated might of Kurama's chakra. Yami felt the chains wrapping around him and he would not be denied his vengeance. As he was immobilized, he focused on pulling his tails apart and he was rewarded by the sickening sound of bones cracking and flesh being ripped apart. With his final act of vengeance fulfilled, Yami accepted the forced immobilization from his mother's chains. Yami closed his eyes. With the suppression from his mother he could no longer deny the influence of Naruto and the altars. In Naruto's mindscape after Han was killed, Rias was finally able to stir Naruto awake. He was confused and looked around before the image of Temari with a fist through her chest flashed into his mind. He crumpled into a ball on the ground, completely oblivious to the chakra storm that was encompassing the mindscape. Completely oblivious and uncaring of the chaos caused by a personality he thought he had long since integrated. Hikari's hugs, Rias' pleas, Yosuke's stoic support and a struggling Kurama attempted to snap Naruto out of it. They needed him to get his shit together and regain control of his body before somebody he loves got hurt. Naruto remained oblivious until the image of his mother forced its way through the mental link. The feel of her chakra and the warmth of her love wrapped around him and gave him strength as her chains forcibly calmed the angry chakra. In the last moments of Yami's control, Naruto saw the Tsuchikage get ripped apart and he felt Yami stop fighting against his own will. With a disorienting rush, he closed his eyes, and he was looking into the violet orbs of his mother when he returned to the real world. Naruto's skin was smoking as Kurama worked overtime with his remaining chakra to undo the damage caused by such a potent Phase 2 transformation. That was the most of Kurama's chakra that Naruto's young body had handled at one time. Luckily, it was only active 10 to 12 minutes, he couldn't really tell since he was unconscious for a while. As he peered into his mother's eyes, her chains receded, and she sped to his side to prevent him from falling over in exhaustion. "Mom, how are you here?" Naruto asked through gasps of breath. Kushina smiled radiantly and answered softly, "Well, the snake Tem tried forcing me to serve him with the impure world resurrection. Kami simply wouldn't allow it, but she said that I could help you defend Konoha since Orochimaru was breaking the rules of the natural order anyway." Naruto looked around, still trying to recover despite the fiery pain coursing through his body, on his skin and in his heart. He closed his eyes and tried to force himself to calm down enough to absorb nature energy to assist in the healing. "It's good to see you again, Mom. Thanks for helping me. Take care of Tamari when she gets to Kami's realm." Tears started falling from his eyes. Itachi had been listening to the interaction since Orochimaru had used a reverse summoning jutsu to flee and the other reincarnations were sealed away or dealt with. Raza was standing next to him and fell to his knees in sorrow. Itachi spoke, "Is that what made you lose control?" Naruto nodded, the pain and shock went so deep. "It seems Yami made his comeback and took control. He is being tied up in my mindscape and the others are keeping a close eye on him. It seems like he no longer wishes to fight now that he has taken his revenge." Kushina smiled with a soft sadness before she raised Naruto's chin and forced him to meet her gaze. "It is not your fault, Sochi. Now, this isn't over yet. Kami is calling me back now that the snake bastard is no longer here. I love you. I am proud of you. I believe in you." Kushina had pulled Naruto into a hug and placed a loving kiss on his still smoking forehead. Itachi let the two have their moment and an Anbu stopped by to tell him that Hiruzen had been evacuated to the hospital for treatment. I walked up to the group and whistled when he saw the shredded remains of Onoki. "Damn, brat, how are we going to explain this one?" Raza stood with a look of rage in his eyes. "Naruto, you said that there are 5,000 shinobi incoming." Naruto watched his mother's soul leave the body and it crumbled to ash and leaves as her soul returned to Kami's realm. He shifted positions away from Onoki's remains and the Odo corpse before he sat in his meditative position. "Give me a sec, Papa Raza." Naruto gathered the turbulent nature energy that was in the stadium and surrounding forests. He felt strength return to his body as the potent natural life force flooded his tenketsu and worked alongside Kurama to repair the damage. He tuned out those sensations and focused on forcing his senses externally before he spread his area of influence. After 2 minutes, his sage markings returned, and he gathered the overflowing information from his senses. Death, grief, panic, terror, despair, rage and many more emotions flooded his senses and made it difficult to glean the information he was looking for. He also felt a strange, yet somehow familiar, energy hovering in the stadium in great quantities. Filtering out all of the unnecessary information, Naruto was finally able to feel the battle raging at the village walls. It was fierce and he felt Gaara was in his fully transformed state fighting off what felt like snake summons. His eyes snapped open. "They are here, north and west gates are under heavy assault. I didn't waste time counting but we need to go. Gaara is already synced with Shukaku, and he can only hold that transformation for 20 minutes. Without another word, the group of the most powerful shinobi in the nations darted off toward the raging battle. Naruto ignored the burning in his coils and the overwhelming feeling of exhaustion. When this was over, he was going to be in bed for a long time. 15 minutes prior, the Sound Shinobi made their move. It started with 5 massive snake summons, and one summon was a giant 3-headed snake for Kami's sake. Thanks to the early warning and early start of the invasion, a perimeter defense force was able to be summoned. The bad news was that the snakes were resilient and very difficult to dispel. It was as the snakes were summoned that the pulse of Kyuubi's chakra hit the perimeter guard and they all saw the pillar of demonic chakra shoot into the sky. They felt the overwhelming presence and rage contained in the chakra, but Chusa Akamichi was able to rally the defenders to focus on their assigned tasks. Despite having a platoon of Akamichi, the snakes were able to create 4 sizable holes in the wall. The desperation of the defenders forced Gaara's hand, and 2 minutes after the walls were breached, he was able to synchronize with Shukaku. The Tanuki was more than happy to get some time out of the seal and let loose a little chaos. The defenders fell back and Gaara became the front line of defense in between the wood line and the breached walls of Konoha. It was the Akamichi that bought the time for Gaara's transformation, but the snakes lashed out with their giant tails and that was how the walls were breached. The Uchiha police force answered the early call for reinforcements, and they joined the hectic battle. The Hyuga bowmen ignored the giant summons since their arrows were ineffective and they focused on holding the groups of sound shinobi at bay. After 10 minutes of fighting, more reinforcements were able to reach the wall as the initial wave of attackers was mostly dealt with. Unfortunately, after 10 minutes of pandemonium, 3 of the 5 summons remained and the casualties on both sides continued to grow. Gaara and Shukaku were engaged in a clash of titans against the 3-headed snake summon while Konoha defenders did their best to keep the walls plugged. Unfortunately, when Iwa's reinforcements arrived, multiple enemy squads were able to get past the defensive lines and enter the village. Jiraiya had been cleaning house around the stadium after the barrier was erected. He was infuriated to see that his old teammate had launched such a bold offensive against his village of origin. He was further incensed by the fact that Iwa joined the invasion, and he wasn't even aware of it. He panicked when Naruto went into the out-of-control Kyuubi mode, but there was literally nothing he could do about that except pray he didn't target Konoha shinobi. Last he saw, he was completely focused on Han, and he couldn't afford to stand around and watch him. He cursed as massive explosions shook the village near the Uchiha police station and district. He knew those explosions, he had fought against them many times in the Second and Third Wars. It was the Iwa Demolition Corps that had the most potent wielders of the explosion release bloodline and other massively destructive jutsus. He changed course to go deal with that threat since there didn't appear to be any action at the walls yet. He was able to follow the explosions and neutralize 3 shinobi bearing the insignia of the Iwa Explosion Corps. After eliminating the 3 shinobi, he saw the snake summons and knew he was needed at the walls. Unfortunately, it was then that he was ambushed by the 2 remaining members of the Explosion Corps. He was able to survive the ambush by covering himself in his hair and hardening it. He then used the hardened hair like a porcupine shaking out its quills to wound one of the shinobi. It took him 8 minutes to finish off the 2 elite Jonin-level shinobi and he didn't escape that fight scot-clean. After catching his breath, he darted towards the battle at the village walls. Jiraiya appeared in his favorite way, a very flashy manner. After summoning Gameiken and Garotora, 2 of the elite snake summons were crushed by the Food Cart Destroyer no Jutsu, as Jiraiya dubbed it. Jiraiya left the 3-headed snake to Gaara and focused on stemming the flow of Iwa shinobi that were entering the village. Shortly after arriving, he felt the arrival of the big guns and grinned in satisfaction. A horn blew that informed Konoha shinobi to fall back and reform lines and Jiraiya heeded that call with everyone except Gaara. As the horn blew, the rookies were joining the counter-attack effort after they had dropped of the last of the civilian evacuees. They were all mortified by the terrified faces of the adult civilians and the hushed murmurs they picked up. They each knew that the terrifying feeling earlier was Naruto, and it really did feel like he had lost control. They were each scared in their own way, but they were resolved to protect their home and fight side by side next to their comrades. They were able to arrive on the wall to bear witness to an act that would go down in history amidst the greatest heroes and protectors of Konoha's vaunted history. Naruto had asked Shikaku to sound the horn and he began molding his chakra. It was time for the world to fear the Mokuten once again. Naruto jumped from the village walls over the last of the retreating defenders and landed in a crouch in front of a couple thousand Iwa and sound shinobi. Before they could react, Naruto called out, "Wood style, violent deep forest emergence." Unlike the serene rebuilding of the great Jura forest, this was a violent demonstration of the power of nature. Massive trees sprouted rapidly in the direction of the attacking forces, each tree creating sharp thorns and wooden spikes as they sought out chakra signatures in their path. It became a violent symphony of Mother Nature's rage as a newly grown forest laid waste to the invading forces. The violent symphony escalated to its natural crescendo as the terrified screams mingled with the roar of a newly emerged forest. The symphony's name was Death, and its debut upon the elemental nations was absolute. The encroaching Iwa and Odo forces let out terrified screams as wooden branches, thorns, vines or trees tore through their ranks. Iwa hadn't seen true war for nearly 20 years, which meant that most of their attacking force had never bore witness to the chaos of battle before. Thus, the inexperienced invaders perished as panic disabled their rational thinking. The wooden forest claimed many frozen victims whose blood became the first offering to the woodland monstrosity. Kitsuchi was working alongside Han to organize the charge and maintain the momentum of the invasion. He was waiting to involve himself until the big guns showed up, and he had ordered Roshi to do the same. Then, he saw one of their primary targets of the invasion land on the ground in front of Konoha's walls after the retreat was organized. His experience taught him to run, hide, defend, or do anything to escape the wrath of this man's chakra. He could feel the massive quantity of chakra molding, and instinct guided him into gathering his own chakra. To his side, Roshi was doing the same as twin domes of earth and lava were erected over Iwa forces within range of the two's jutsu. Kitsuchi rode out the brief earthquake that the emerging forest caused and let out a breath of relief as the wood didn't manage to penetrate through the multiple earthen domes his forces had erected. Then he felt a serene feeling was over the domes, and the sounds of battle outside came to a brief halt. Through cracks in the multiple earthen domes, he saw what looked to be yellow pollen floating all around. More domes, now, and don't breath in the air. Kitsuchi roared loud enough to be heard by all those in his vicinity. His forces moved to comply with his orders as they fought off the serene feeling that was calling them to sleep. After holding the deep forest emergence jutsu for 20 seconds and creating acres of forest, Naruto flipped to the snake and bird seals before calling out, wood-style, flowery deep forest bloom, which caused giant red flowers with multiple golden stamens to emerge from trees all over the forest. Switching to the rat hand seal, Naruto finished the final jutsu of the series with wood-style, pollination of the divine forest. Big globules of golden pollen suffused the air and began putting the attacking shinobi forces to sleep. On the wall, the rookies watched alongside their Konoha brethren as the rebirth of Hashirama Senju laid waste to the invading forces in a single decisive blow. Their jaws were on the floor and their brains were barely comprehending what their eyes were showing them. If not for their many comrades repeatedly saying things like, unfreaking believable, or, Lord First, or, the power of Mokuten, or, Lord Senju saved us, then the rookies would have remained in a stunned state of denial. However, the reverent whispers were able to confirm that this was indeed happening. Their comrade, friend and fellow shinobi was indeed halting an invasion single-handedly. Shika, how is this possible? Choji asked as he stood completely still next to his friend. I don't know, Choji. Shika responded. I knew Naruto was strong. I knew he could use the Mokuten, but I never even imagined he was this strong, Ino said in a reverent whisper as silent praise for her lover. It is because he loves you all. That is what gives him this strength, Kankuro said. He had been supporting Gaara, but he rejoined the rookies when the horn was sounded. I grew up with the guy and he is a brother to me. He did this for y'all. Not for your village, not for your Hokage, but for each of you. Neji, who had been pulled by Hiashi to join the Hyuga Bowman Corps early on, joined the conversation as he broke out of his shock thanks to a trickle of blood falling into his eye. It is unbelievable. I always wondered how Naruto stood up to my father on that night when he was only a boy, but now it is clear. He must have let my father go for some reason, because my father could never stand up to someone capable of doing this. Rock Lee walked onto the rampart with a limp, and he was supporting Tenten, who was injured and bleeding from a wound to her side. She was also in a state of shock from watching the display, but her shock deepened as she watched a volley of fireballs get shot into the woods. Naruto's Sage Mode faded after the final jutsu, and he collapsed to the ground in a heap. Itachi ordered Inoichi Yamanaka to take him from the battlefield and get him to the hospital. After watching the monstrous display of power from his student, the 5th Hokage ordered fire users to launch a volley of fire jutsus into the newly emerged and pollinated forest. The remaining Uchiha launched several fire dragons that led the volley of fireballs into the forest. The flammable pollen ignited upon contact with the flames, which caused a massive explosion in the newly emerged forest. After the heat from the explosion died down to tolerable levels, Itachi, and Raza led the counter-offensive into the fiery forest. What ensued was a slaughter of the survivors until they ran into nearly 1,000 Iwa shinobi that had managed to regroup under the leadership of Kitsuchi, son of the 3rd Tsuchikage and father of Kuretsuchi. This led to a pitched battle that lasted until less than 500 Iowa shinobi scattered into an unorganized retreat. Rather than hunt them down, Itachi ordered his forces back to Konoha to secure the village and begin recovery. Recovery and unrest. Naruto's eyes cracked open to a scene he hadn't seen yet in this life. The blinding fluorescent white light, the sickening antiseptic smell, pain racking every inch of his body, and the feel of a flimsy hospital gown trapped in an uncomfortable hospital bed. Naruto didn't even awake in his mindscape. Evidently, he was totally exhausted body and soul after the invasion. As his eyes grew accustomed to the blinding hospital lights, he turned his head down and noticed two mops of slightly different shades of blonde hair. Wondering if this was a dream, Naruto struggled to free his arms from the grasps of the two familiar blondes. As they stirred awake, Naruto was now sure he was in a dream. A tired Temari with drool dribbling out of the left side of her lip looked at him with cloudy and tired emerald eyes. She snapped awake and pulled him into a passionate hug as tears fell freely from his eyes. Even if it were a dream, he would have given anything to see her again, and he wasn't going to waste this opportunity. Temari, he whispered in a choked, dry and hoarse voice. Temari, is that you? Temari pulled her head out of his chest and glistening emerald orbs stared back at him. Yes, Ruto. Yes, it's me. Naruto began shaking with tears as guilt and sorrow overwhelmed his soul. I am sorry, I am so sorry, I couldn't save you. Shish, it's okay Ruto. It is all okay now. I am fine, Temari said as she pulled his head to her chest. Ino was wide awake now, watching the touching scene with a serene smile on her face. Shish, it's all right Ruto. Everything is going to be all right. Naruto wanted to savor this dream, savor this moment with one of the loves of his life. He wanted to say a proper goodbye to this piece of his soul, and he never wanted to wake from this dream. If this was Kami's realm, then he was at least happy that he got to die alongside both of his soulmates. He couldn't stop the tears from flowing nor the snot from soaking into Temari's blouse. They may all be dead, but at this moment Naruto's whole being was racked with guilt for failing to protect his lovers. All he wanted to do was hold Temari and remember every moment he had left with her before he was forced to wake up and go back to a reality without her in it. Temari was rubbing his back and holding him close. Grateful that the man she loved had finally returned to her. She would be here for him, she would never ever be separated from him again. She continued to soothe him as she patiently waited for him to calm down enough to tell him what was going on. Unfortunately, at that moment, a nurse entered the hospital room and gasped before running back out into the hallway. Naruto started to squirm and panic as he was scared the nurse would disrupt this moment and he would lose Temari forever. Don't let them come in. I don't want to waste time in my dream when I can see you one more time. All I want to do is spend the remaining time I have left with you. Naruto said, softly into Temari's chest. Ino and Temari exchanged confused looks and wondered what exactly was going on with their man. Ino, never one to be left out of the loop, asked the question. What do you mean, Ruto? This isn't a dream, we are right here with you. Naruto didn't even budge, he kept his head buried in Temari's chest and soaked up her scent and feel. I know it's a dream, I watched Temari die. I don't care though, I just want to stay here with you. Now understanding dawned on the two. Ino immediately lunged over the bed and glommed onto Naruto as she attempted to push every ounce of comfort through the contact. Temari hushed Naruto and continued to comfort him as she explained the piece of the story that he was missing. Flashback, as Naruto was breaking into the barrier. Tsunade had just blown a hole in the stadium's tunnel, and she ran out onto the field. She saw the devastation and gore that littered the arena floor as well as the ongoing battles scattered around the arena. She saw Naruto ripping the barrier to shreds in his cubified form, but she ripped her focus away from that insane scene and went into medic mode. She began looking for friendly survivors in an attempt to save as many as she could. She started by summoning a large fragment of Katsuyu in an area of the arena that she wouldn't potentially smush any of the survivors. She immediately had Katsuya fragment and began to search for survivors. After doing that, she saw something she never wanted to see. A familiar mop of blonde hair tied into easily recognizable ponytails with a recognizable battle fan lying next to her. She darted over to Temari and pulled her into her arms and saw the gaping wound burnt with Biju chakra. She didn't need to run a diagnostic jutsu to know that Temari was dead. Tsunade began to weep as images of Dan's and Noaki's death filled her mind and prevented her from doing anything else. Tsunade ignored Katsuyu's repeated attempts to snap her out of it until she felt an old and weary hand on her shoulder. Her head turned immediately, and she jumped back, not knowing if the hand was friend or foe. As she cradled Temari in her arms, she looked up to see Chiyo standing there with a terribly sad look on her old, wrinkled face. "Easy, princess, I am here to help," Chiyo said calmly. Tsunade noticed that most of the fighting had died down by this point and she looked regretfully at Chiyo. "You can't help, Granny, she is dead." A small, sad smile flittered upon Chiyo's face. "There is still something I can do. I will need your help though, I am not as young as I once was." Hope flared to life in Tsunade's eyes, and she pulled Temari tighter into her chest. "I'm listening." Chiyo tilted her head in the direction of the newly created tunnel. "Let's go somewhere more private and secure, princess." The two walked through the tunnel and into a medical bay that wasn't being used. As they walked, Chiyo explained her plan and she also explained that Tsunade would need to heal most of the wound before her jutsu would work. Tsunade nodded sadly, knowing the cost of such a jutsu, but she knew she would do the same thing for Naruto without any hesitation. After getting set up, Tsunade activated her Strength of 1000 seal, the upgraded version of her original seal, and allowed the markings to expand around her body as potent life energy flooded her being. She focused the potent chakra into a powerful medical jutsu and began forcibly repairing the damage done to Temari's chest. Temari glowed green as Tsunade's overcharged jutsu forced the recently deceased cells back to life. Tsunade then provided the life force for those cells to begin mitosis and guided the new cells to heal the gaping hole in Temari's chest. After 15 minutes, Temari's body looked good as new, but there was no life, no soul remaining in her body. Seeing it was time for her part, Chiyo stepped forward and put a reassuring hand on Tsunade's shoulder. "All right, princess, I am going to need you to provide a chakra boost. Other than that, I will handle it," Chiyo said softly, the smile never leaving her withered face. "I want you to know, as a mother, I respect what you are about to do. I will never forget you," Tsunade whispered in a reverent tone. Chiyo cackled, "Oh, I am looking forward to the sleep. You were my greatest rival, and I came to respect you. Tell the young one not to fret over an old lady. Tell Raza that it was my greatest pleasure to watch Suna thrive and I trust him with the village. If you see my wayward grandson again, tell him I will be waiting for him on the other side." Tsunade nodded firmly. "I will, enjoy your sleep, Chiyo." With that, Chiyo began weaving through a long series of hand signs with a smile on her face. Her hands glowed a bluish green as she put her hands on Temari's chest. She nodded with her head and Tsunade placed her hands onto Chiyo's and focused on passing chakra into Chiyo. Chiyo whispered, "Tensai, life transfer no jutsu." Chiyo kept her hands on Temari's chest for 2 minutes until the glowing of her hands stopped and Chiyo's body collapsed lightly on top of Temari. End of flashback. Naruto listened with his head buried in Temari's breasts the whole time, enjoying the hollow echo that accompanied Temari's story. The rise and fall of her chest, the warmth of her body, the soft skin, the smell of her lightly scented perfume and the tender tone were all things Naruto would never forget as he listened to the story of a miracle being performed to save the woman he loved. He remembered Chiyo doing the same thing last time around, which made it far easier to accept. He offered a grateful prayer to Chiyo and made a request to Kami to put Chiyo up in the VIP suite. "Thank Kami, I don't know what I would do without you," he whispered as he finally removed his head from Temari's chest. "Oh, I don't know, maybe go berserk and kill a Jinchuriki, a Kage and a couple hundred shinobi. Just a guess," Ino said sarcastically. She had been taken out of the stadium early and worked with Asuma to evacuate civilians and deal with threats in the village. She was extremely worried when she felt Naruto lose control, but now it all made sense to her. She believed with every fiber of her being that he would have done the same thing if it were her in Temari's place. Naruto chuckled sadly, "Yeah, I might have done that. That reminds me, I will need to have a talk with Yami." "Yami?" Ino asked, clearly confused. "My dark side. Last time around, I integrated with him. I thought that was still the case, but he took over when I saw Han kill Temari. He controlled Kurama's unfiltered chakra and was the one that pulled it all out. If it weren't for my mom, I probably would have lost myself completely. Naruto explained. After explaining, he opened the mental link and thought, sorry for making you guys worry. I will be in to talk when I get a chance. Is Yami still a separate personality or did he reintegrate? Ino asked in full psychiatrist mode. He is still separated. I will have to talk to him once everything calms down. Naruto answered truthfully. Before the conversation could continue, Tsunade, Shizune, Itachi and Shino walked into his room. When they saw him awake, they all gave him a smile or a nod in Shino's case. Naruto noticed the 4 Anbu post up outside of the hospital room. Good to see you awake again, Naruto. Itachi said with a soft smile. You too, Lord Hokage. Naruto answered respectfully, realizing that he is probably in deep shit for killing a Jinchuriki and the Tsuchikage. Relax, Naruto. We will deal with the business stuff later. I am just here to make sure you are okay. Itachi responded gracefully. Yeah, sensei, he pulled Temari into his arms, I am doing just fine. You scared us, brat. Tsunade stepped into the conversation. Yeah, I am sorry about that. It is good to see you, Mama, Shizune, and thanks for stopping by, Shino. You are my teammate, Naruto. I will always be here when you need me. Shino answered in his usual monotone. So, what's the damage, Doc? Naruto asked, looking between Shizune and Tsunade. Severe chakra exhaustion, chakra shock, extensive damage to your chakra network, stress fractures in femurs, tibias, fibulas and both humeri, not to mention severe stress to your internal organs. Your body was not ready for that much of Kurama's chakra. You have been out for 4 days, and you are not allowed to use chakra for at least 1 week or until I say you can. You will be on bedrest until I clear you. Tsunade said in a firm and professional tone. Itachi whistled, damn Ruto, you did quite a number on yourself. On my side of things, we were able to repel the invasion. You started things ahead of schedule and the staggered timing really saved us. There were 4,200 enemy dead and nearly 100 captured, including the Tsuchikage's granddaughter. What happened to Roshi and the 4 tails? Naruto asked. The Raikage and I fought against him after your jutsu. He fought a delaying action to prevent us from chasing further. We did some damage, but I thought it more important to secure the village, so I let them retreat. Itachi informed the group. What about our side? Naruto asked hesitantly, not sure he wanted the answer. We took a hit, don't worry about that now. Naruto, I need to know, are you going to be okay? Itachi asked seriously. Naruto scoffed, by that do you mean will I be going on a rampage anytime soon? Yes. Itachi answered blandly. The civilians and quite a few shinobi are scared, Naruto. You don't remember the terror the Kyuubi inspired, but everyone older than your age does. This is serious, Naruto. Naruto sighed, it wasn't Kurama's fault. I watched Temari die in front of me, and a new personality emerged. It is my dark side, and he is named Yami. Yami took over when my soul basically shattered to pieces by watching Temari die. He pulled out Kurama's chakra and killed Han and Onoki. You were there when I regained control. Itachi processed the information, very well. I will inform Inoichi, and we will need you to undergo counseling. I am aware of your MPD, but I cannot risk this Yami taking over again. You will be under constant observation until cleared. Naruto shrugged, you can try. Naruto. Tsunade's tone was firm and daring. You will do what you are told. I would rather leave. If these ungrateful motherfuckers don't want me here, then I will go. Naruto shot back. Tsunade backed down at that, but Itachi bristled. You would betray your village and go missing, Nin. Naruto scoffed, no, Lord Hokage, you may not be aware, but I am free to leave if and whenever I please. If you don't stop me now, I can disappear in a flash. Naruto's tone was challenging and defensive. Itachi didn't like this aspect of Naruto. He knew about Naruto's deep grudge against the village, but this was extreme. Why are you angry at me, Ruto? Because you pulled fucking rank. Look, Itachi, you can either be my friend and sensei or you can be my Hokage. If you are my Hokage, then realize that I am in the village by choice, not necessity. If you are my friend and sensei, then trust me to have my shit under control. Even when Yami was in control, he only attacked the enemy. I am not aware of a single friendly casualty caused by him. I could give a fuck less about the pathetic villagers and their PTSD. Tsunade sighed wearily, Shizune looked down sadly, Ino looked to be near tears and Temari was firmly in Naruto's corner. Shino simply stood stoically and watched the show. Itachi debated what to do internally. If he took adverse action against Naruto, then he had little doubt he would leave. Given the state of Konoha, Itachi needed Naruto and he knew deep down that Naruto didn't need Konoha. Naruto, please don't do this. Konoha has welcomed you back with open arms. It is your home, Itachi began. Konoha is my duty, Itachi. They welcomed me back purely because I am a Senju. I have friends here that I cherish, and my ancestry is here, but those things don't disappear if I leave. I have given much to Konoha, much more than you could ever know. Naruto's bravado faded, and Tsunade moved next to Naruto and put a calming hand on his shoulder. Tsunade comforted her grandson and leveled a firm gaze on Itachi. I am with Naruto. I have spoken with Kinji, and we can leave. In fact, that may be for the best. If those chicken shit, ungrateful bastards you call villagers can't appreciate what my boy has done for them, then the Senju will follow him. That was it was now official, Itachi hated the Hokage position. Things were so much easier when he was a Jonin sensei or simply running missions. He would rather do a month straight of S-ranked missions than deal with this bullshit. Look, Naruto, why don't you take some time and calm down? Nothing has been done yet and there is no need to act hastily. There will be a council meeting tomorrow and your attendance will be required. It was Tsunade's turn to scoff. You think that's a good idea, Itachi? You are going to put him in front of people that didn't see him defend them. You are going to make him justify himself to villagers that hid behind barriers he provided for them. When Itachi said nothing, Tsunade continued, very well, Lord Hokage. The Senju will attend the council meeting tomorrow. Itachi winced at the formal title, knowing full well what that implied. Thank you, Lady Tsunade. That will be all for now. Itachi left the room and an awkward silence hovered for a minute or so. Finally, it was Ino that broke down. Naruto, would you really leave me? Ino asked near to tears. Naruto pulled her into a hug. I would sooner rip out my own heart, Ino. If I need to leave, I will find a way to bring you. He placed a tender kiss on her forehead. Those in the room missed the sweet nothings the two whispered to each other. Shino shifted agitatedly. My clan is with you, Naruto. I will admit that the feel of your chakra was fierce, but the Aburame realize all you have done for us. He shot a grateful look at Shino. Man, he should have made friends with this guy sooner last time around. Thanks, Shino. That means a lot. Shino nodded and gracefully left the room. Temari filled the new bout of silence. You know, Ruto, since Suna and Konoha are allies, we could probably get Ino transferred over. That is if worst comes to worst and she is willing. Ino pondered the idea, sad at the thought of leaving her home. Naruto saw this and pulled her close once again. I couldn't ask her to leave her friends and family. Maybe I am just blowing things out of proportion, but I can't help it. When I was in Sage mode, I felt all of their fear. All of the civilians were beyond terrified after feeling Kurama's untamed chakra. Shizune spoke up, we understand, Ruto. I don't blame you for what happened. Why don't you get some sleep, and we can talk about this tomorrow. Naruto nodded and said, that's a great idea. He then began unhooking himself from the machine to the horror of the medics in the room. What? I am not staying here. I will sleep better at home. Tsunade sighed and rubbed her temples wearily. Do it, Shizune. We can hook him up to some IVs back at home. Sure thing, mama. I will get his discharge paperwork processed. Shizune answered cheerfully. Has everyone left yet? Naruto asked, just remembering all of the guests that were staying at the compound. Yup, thanked Kami for that. Without your clone army it was hard to play host to so many. Hoto and Kinji left yesterday. They are going to be sending support packages to Konoha. I and Raza left this morning, but Temari, Gaara and Kankuro are staying behind to help with cleanup. Tsunade answered. Naruto took Temari's hand in his own. Well, won't Temari be staying regardless? I assume I qualified for Chunin, which means the treaty would be activated and we would be officially engaged. Ruto, let's see how this all plays out. Like I said, if Konoha doesn't want you then Suna will most definitely take you in. Temari said soothingly. Gah, fine, my head hurts and I am sick of thinking about this. I am going home, and I am going to get some sleep. Anyone feel like using Shunshin to get me home? I really don't feel like dealing with the villagers. Ino and Tamari smiled before speaking simultaneously. We got you. Senju Compound 7 a.m. 5 days after the invasion. Naruto woke up in his own bed showered in long, loose blonde hair. The smell of lilac and lilies filled his nostrils and brought a smile to his sleepy face. Rather than stir, Naruto remained still and appreciated the moment despite the morning sun's best attempt to blind him. After soaking it in and enjoying their warmth, Naruto closed his eyes and went to visit his mindscape. It was time to wake everyone up and talk this out. Naruto felt the familiar diving feeling and opened his eyes to see the sun peeking up over the wooded tree line of his mindscape. He noticed that there were more reds and blacks that spotted the landscape, but he figured he would figure out what that was about in due time. He walked into the cabin where his alters were sleeping and started the morning pot of coffee as well as some bacon and eggs. He could have simply imagined them into existence, but there was something cathartic about cooking breakfast for people you love. It didn't take long for the aromas to saturate the home and, as usual, Yosuke was the first one to join. He was halfway done with his first mug of coffee when Kurama and Rias joined the pair. Finally, after they were nearly done with breakfast, Hikari walked into the kitchen area yawning and grabbed her plate after mumbling a thank you. Naruto let her eat and wake up, but he was surprised when a black-haired boy with whisker marks, black eyes with red slits, a black sleeping gown and feral features entered the kitchen area. Naruto scooped some of the leftovers onto a plate and handed it to the new addition with a smile. It's good to see you again. May I still refer to you as Yami? Naruto asked genially. Yami grunted, grabbed the plate and then did his best Sasuke impression as he ate his breakfast silently. The others cast strange looks in his direction and an awkward silence fell over the home. Finally, once Yami and Hikari had finished eating, Naruto started the overdue conversation. Alright guys and girls, I don't know what happened while I was out, but I guess I should start by asking Yami why he emerged and what he wants to do from here. Yami grunted, Oh, hell no. We are not having duck butt 2 in this house. I simply refuse. Rias yelled, which made Hikari giggle and Kurama laugh out loud. Yami leveled a glare at Rias. Look, princess, each of you gets to live your own life and have fun. I get stuck with all of the negativity, remorse, anger, revenge and all that bullshit. Things weren't terrible this time around, but I still don't know what to do. It's infuriating. Which is kind of your thing. Hikari cut in innocently and earned another round of laughter from the group and an HN from Yami. Naruto sighed at the Debbie Downer. It was going to be tough dealing with him and integrating him into an environment that had been warm, friendly and welcoming. Look, Yami, you and I were one for a long time. I still accept you, but I don't want to deny you your individuality and freedom, if that is what you want. All eyes turned to Yami, clearly not surprised about Naruto's take on things. Just let me think about it. I only re-emerged for like 30 minutes and I have been asleep since then. Yami replied in a yandere tone. Yosuke decided to speak up. If you are thinking that you did something wrong, you did not. If you didn't take control, I was going to do so. Your rage was completely understandable, and you kept your aggression targeted at the appropriate parties. Kurama barked out a laugh. Yeah, it was quite the show. Despite me trying to resist your influence, I did enjoy the blood shower and display of brutality. It has been a long time since I was able to enjoy such things. Hikari hid behind Ria's sleeve but decided to speak up. I never could have done what you did, and it scared me but you can stay here, if you want. Rias rubbed Hikari's head in an annoying, sisterly fashion. Squirt here is right. If you want, you can stay. If it is too troublesome for you, then I am sure Naruto will integrate you back in. As for me, just try not to be so broody and find something worth living for. Yami was looking around confused. He existed because of the difficulty of Naruto's previous life. He was the amalgamation of Naruto's bitterness, rage and hatred. Was there a point to living with so much darkness, unable to see the light or the good in humanity? Yami sighed. He was never one for such complex thinking. Look, I don't know what I want. I don't really see a point to all of this. Naruto went over and embraced his polar opposite in a hug, much like he once did while interacting with him in the waterfall of reflection. Take your time. If you want to rejoin with me, I will have you back. If you want to attempt to live your own life, we will need to set some ground rules. Rias scoffed, yeah, like no forcibly taking over the original's body and going completely apeshit. And no killing cages without orders. Yosuke added. And maybe try to be a little nicer. Hikari said in half-question. And definitely no using my chakra. The kit purified my chakra and when you were using it the old darkness and hatred resonated again. Kurama growled. I didn't realize how unpleasant those human emotions were. It was Yami's turn to scoff and growl. Look, Fuzzball, you used to be like me. You have grown soft over these recent, peaceful years. Naruto stepped in between Yami and Kurama. You think so? Cuz, I remember Kurama and I kicking some serious ass for 3 whole years against damned near the whole shinobi world. Look, Yami, I agree with what has been said. I am not kicking you out, but there are limitations. Let's start with a month-long trial period. You stay in the seal with access to my senses. If you find something worth living for then I may let you out. If you want to reintegrate after that, then so be it. We did it once, we can do it again. Having reached an accord, Naruto returned to the real world and noticed his 2 blondes were beginning to stir. With a kiss to each of them, Naruto started his day. It was incredibly boring living without using his chakra or training. It was even more boring when the girls made him honor Tsunade's bedrest order and then left him alone in his room. By the time Tsunade showed up to take him to the council meeting, Naruto was actually thinking that it would be more fun than simply laying in his bed and reading a fuinjutsu book. Council chambers 2 p.m. 5 days after the invasion. Tsunade grabbed Naruto from his room and used the Shunshin to transport him to the council room without needing to deal with the villagers. Tsunade had been active since the invasion, and she hadn't missed the sidelong glances, weary looks and hushed conversations that seemed to stop whenever she got into listening distance. She had about had enough of it, and she had an idea of how this idiotic council meeting would go. She just hoped it wouldn't be as bad as she was thinking. Tsunade walked into the council chambers to see all shinobi clans were represented, even the minor ones. This was bad, really, really bad. The only time the full council was called was during wartime and it often devolved into chaos. She looked around the room and noticed there were the usual clan heads, the elite Jonin, the civilian council, and a representative of the Fire Lord. Kinji had left one of his representatives to assist in the recovery and when Tsunade had written about the council meeting in the communication scroll, he had instantly ordered his representative to attend the meeting on his behalf. All eyes were fixed on Naruto and Tsunade as they entered the chambers, which didn't surprise Naruto in the slightest. Tsunade gave his shoulder a squeeze and went to take her seat. Itachi pounded a gavel on the desk in front of him and garnered the attention of the council. It was then that Naruto noticed that Fugaku wasn't in the Uchiha clan head position. Rather, it was Makoto sitting in the seat, and he wondered what exactly he had missed. Naruto Senju Uzumaki, you have been called before the Joint Council of Konoha to testify to your actions during the invasion 5 days ago. The reason being is that it will likely lead Konoha into war. We will allow you to provide testimony before we open the floor to questions and determine a proper course of action. Itachi said in a strictly professional tone that lacked any of the subtle emotions that Naruto had learned to discern from Itachi. If that is your will, Lord Hokage. Naruto responded with a bow before he recounted the events of the invasion from his perspective. As he told the story, he saw the hackles rising on the civilian council while the shinobi seemed to be on his side. With his chakra subdued, he couldn't exactly feel their emotions, but he didn't need chakra sensing to tell how they were feeling. Their body language said it all. The civilians were scared shitless of him, and not in an amusing way. It was closer to the fear that made people lash out. Once his story came to an end, there were numerous conversations and mutterings, but luckily no screaming. Thank you, Naruto. I will now open the floor to the council to question Naruto. Itachi said before he pointed towards Shukaku. The Nara was not slouched, not sleeping, and he had actually been paying close attention. Naruto had noticed the analytical gleam in his eye, and he could only hope that he would take Naruto's side. All right, Naruto, I would like to know how you knew of the invasion ahead of time. According to testimonies gathered, you notified multiple parties about the Iwa and Odo forces nearly 45 minutes before they attacked our walls. That's easy. Before my match against Kuretsuchi, I entered Sage mode. It allows me unparalleled sensory abilities, especially within the forests of Fire Country. When undisturbed, I can sense nearly 100 miles in any direction. My senses fade out when the forests do though, so I can't sense past the beaches or out onto the ocean to the east. Naruto answered respectfully. Did the demon provide you with these abilities? A civilian counselor Naruto didn't recognize spoke out of turn and asked this question. No, if you were listening, my abilities are due to my Mokuden combined with Senjutsu chakra. The Kyuubi has nothing to do with them. Naruto answered flatly with a deadpan look on his face. I will ask the civilian council to refrain from asking questions of a shinobi nature. You are here to observe and provide counsel when I ask for it, nothing else. Itachi cut in before another question could be asked. Inoichi cast an apologetic look at Naruto before he spoke. Naruto, due to the severity of the event, I was forced to share details from our sessions with the council. They are aware of your alternate personalities. As such, I need to ask about the newly emerged personality. Why did it emerge and what is its current status? Naruto shot a hard look at Inoichi. He knew that he was probably forced to ask the question, but it didn't mean Naruto had to like it. I witnessed the woman I love get impaled through the chest by the Jinchuriki of the five-tailed Biju while I was engaged in battle against approximately 20 Iwa shinobi. Due to the trauma of witnessing the event, my mind shattered so to speak, and a part of my personality broke off. The personality that emerged was my dark side, simply speaking. He refers to himself as Yami and he is currently still separated from my core personality. He will remain so until he determines what he wants to do. If he chooses to reintegrate, I have no qualms about doing so. This statement drew confused looks from many in the room that were not familiar with psychology or matters of the human mind. Unfortunately, one such person spoke. So, you are crazy then. Lord Hokage, I called for the immediate imprisonment. The civilian counselor froze mid-sentence as a paperweight sailed by his head before he was crushed under the weight of Tsunade's killing intent. Inoichi, explain it in a way that these imbeciles will understand. For the rest of you, if you so much as suggest touching Naruto, I will splatter you all over these walls on my way out of this village. Tsunade growled in a menacing tone just above a whisper that everyone in the room could hear clearly. Itachi sighed, knowing this was going to happen. Anbu, please escort the counselor out and find him a change of clothes. He is no longer welcome in this session. The Anbu moved to fulfill their new Hokage's orders. Inoichi, please explain for those that are not fluent in psychology. Inoichi looked uncomfortably between Tsunade and Naruto before beginning in a neutral tone. Naruto has multiple personality disorder, and it has been stable for most of his life. The personalities were caused by childhood trauma, so it makes sense that watching a lover die would be a triggering event for another personality to emerge. Naruto has the ability to configure his mindscape and interact with his alternate personalities, which we refer to as alters. The concerning thing about this alter is that it is Naruto's dark side, and it was able to forcibly take control and it had access to the Kyuubi's chakra. The respectful silence ended here as many people began to overreact at the information. It was admittedly disturbing, but there were a couple caveats to the information that they were missing. Itachi was already fed up with this meeting, but it needed to happen. After regaining control, Itachi returned to Mike to Inoichi who continued. Inoichi coughed and began again. As I was saying, in this instance the altar was able to access the Kyuubi's chakra. This is concerning for many reasons, but I believe the only reason it was capable of doing so was because of Naruto's compromised mental state. Is that right, Naruto? Yes, I cannot explain it in any other way than saying I was so distraught that I went unconscious. I was awoken by my alters and the Kyuubi after Han was killed, but I was in no shape to reclaim control. When Yami dispatched the Tsuchikage, I saw my mother through the mental link, then I felt her chakra when she wrapped my body in her chains. Due to this, I was able to regain control and suppress Yami. I will let this council know that mental safeguards have been put in place to hold Yami within my mind and he can no longer access the Kyuubi's chakra. Furthermore, Yami feels no need to resist or attempt to take control and is content to remain in my mindscape for a probationary period. Naruto explained as calmly as he could. Inoichi retook control of the conversation immediately following Naruto's explanation. He could tell that the civilians were still skeptical and ruled by fear. They were going to make this more difficult than it needed to be. During my sessions with Naruto, I will tell this council once again that he has created a unique and effective way of managing his altars. The Yami altar poses a threat because it is composed of darker emotions, but I will evaluate it during our sessions. That will be all from my perspective, Lord Hokage. Inoichi retook his seat after saying his piece. To everyone's dismay, Mibuki Haruno stood up. Lord Hokage and fellow councilors, we cannot prioritize the needs of one boy over the safety of the village. I call for a vote to detain the boy, or at the bare minimum have him under constant surveillance. Furthermore, due to the value of his bloodline and weakened mental state, I also call for a vote to take sperm samples for use propagating the Mokuden bloodline in Konoha. That was it, this bitch was going to die. Tsunade launched herself over the clan head's desk and had a fist cocked back. She launched the fist forward only for it to be intercepted by Jiraiya, who took the hit like a champ and went flying over the civilian councilors. Jiraiya was laid out in the wall with birdies flying around his head. Multiple Anbu appeared in between Tsunade and the pink-haired banshee and prevented her advance. Tsunade barely restrained herself from moving, but she made no such attempts to limit the amount of Ki that she was leveling upon Mibuki and the rest of the civilian council. Over my dead body. I will level this damned village to the ground before I let you do such a thing, Tsunade yelled at the top of her lungs. Mama, relax. I want to see how this vote goes. Naruto said in an eerie calm. Tsunade was taken aback, but her anger abated as she heard her grandson's calm tone. Rather than retake her seat, she stood next to Naruto before she issued her warning. I am unable to partake in this vote due to personal biases, however, I will caution you now. Vote carefully. Nobody missed the threat that wasn't even hidden behind vague words. It was perfectly clear what was being said. However, that didn't deter many people from voting in favor of both motions. The only reason this passed was because every civilian councilor and multiple minor clans voted for the motion. Despite all of the main clans voting against the measure along with a fair few jonin, it was still passed because it was a joint council, which included all of the minor clans, influential civilians and other parties that usually didn't have a say in Konoha's governing system. This allowed Homura and Kaharu, the heads of their respective minor clans, to have a vote. They voted in favor with devilish smirks on their faces. Naruto locked eyes with Tsunade, who gave him a resigned nod. Ambassador Kigawa, Konoha has voted to deprive me of my human rights. Please inform Lord Kinji that we will be leaving Konoha, and we will be arriving at the Senju estate in the capital by the end of the week to discuss the Senju's future role in Fire Country. The Fire Lord's ambassador nodded and began scribbling a message in the scroll, but Itachi made him pause midway through. Ambassador, please wait before sending that message. I veto the vote of the Joint Council with my authority as the Hokage on the grounds that the Civilian Council had no right to vote on shinobi matters. Homura stood up. Itachi, after a stern correction from Itachi, Homura continued, Lord Hokage, you cannot let one child strong-arm you. The Civilian Council has every right to vote in matters that concern the welfare and safety of the village. The Mokuden was an ability of Konoha's founder, and as such it is in the best interest of Konoha to keep it within the village. Itachi sighed. These people were going to drive the Senju out of Konoha. He was saved by Hiyashi Hyuga. The council does not have the right to make such demands of a founding clan heir or any clan member of Konoha. The most you could do would be to suggest that Naruto is entered into the Clan Restoration Act. This matter was voted on previously, as I am sure you are aware, and measures have already been approved by the council. Mibuki had regained her composure despite the wetness that saturated her panties and dress. We of the Civilian Council have every right for our voice to be heard in matters of village security. In light of recent events, the old votes should be revoked since the boy is clearly unstable. Tsunade stomped her foot on the ground and gained everyone's attention once again, and she shifted her glare from Mibuki, who had once again crumpled into her seat, and shifted it back on Itachi. Itachi Uchiha, we are leaving. I dare any of you to try and stop us. If I remain in this room, there will be so many blood splatters that you will have to conduct a joint burial. If your Anbu try to stop me, I will not be held liable for the new craters. Shikaku Nara stood up. I won't stop you from leaving the council, but please remain in Konoha, Lady Tsunade. We will handle the meeting and get this resolved. Konoha cannot afford to lose a Sannin and an S class shinobi at this time. Stop. It is not safe for Naruto to be outside the protection of Konoha. Jiraiya shouted. Naruto grabbed Tsunade's hand before he spoke calmly, then maybe these fucking idiots should have thought about that before they attempted to imprison me and forcibly take my seat. I will give the members of this council that I actually respect 1 week to get this shit sorted out. I will leave this useless creation of the second Hokage with one final thought. It was the Senju clan that earned the alliances with Suna, Kumo and Wave. Ya na. He ended with an overly cheerful wave that was clearly a taunt leveled at the council. Tsunade didn't feel the need to follow up with anything further, she simply put her hand on Naruto's shoulder and used the Shunshin to get him back to the Senju compound. Naruto really hated needing to rely on his mama to get him around the city, but it would only be a couple more days. Tsunade knew she needed to leave the council chambers, but she also knew it was risky to let the cowards plot and scheme behind her back. If she and Naruto had to leave Konoha, then the Harunos, Mitokotos and Uditanes would suffer severely. Back in the council chambers, pandemonium ensued, and Itachi was an inch away from entering his Susanoo and destroying the Hokage Tower to simply be rid of these people and the paperwork. Unfortunately, fate wasn't so kind to him. So, he took fate into his own hand. With a couple of hand signals that ordered the Anbu into action. Civilian councilors and select minor clan heads were silenced with swords to their necks, which made the council chamber eerily quiet. Thank you, Anbu. Feel free to stay there for the duration of the meeting. Now, I believe it is time we have a discussion about proper conduct in my council room. The next civilian or minor clan head to speak will have their tongue cut out. If that proves ineffective and you still disrupt my council meetings, I will take a head. To Ambassador Kigawa, I apologize for the unsightly display and conduct of my council. I cannot stop you from informing Lord Kinji of what we speak, but I would ask you to add that I wish to talk to him about some changes I wish to introduce. Kigawa smirked internally. The Uchiha boy could play the political game, even if he had nearly lost control. Very well, Lord Hokage, I will inform him. Now, the main issues that Lord Kinji actually needed addressed were the response to Iwa, the casualty report and plans for dealing with Iwa and Oto. Kigawa kept his voice professional despite his disgust with this childish council in front of him. It was clear to Kigawa that Hirazen's second reign had greatly weakened the once great tree. Itachi looked to Shikaku for a rundown on the reports. Shikaku stood due to the serious nature of the information and began, well, due to warnings from the neighborhood watch we had some preemptive measures in place that greatly reduced civilian casualties and damage to critical infrastructures. Thanks to Naruto's preemptive warning and subsequent actions against the bulk of Iwa's and Oto's armies, we were able to keep most of the fighting outside of the city. That being said, we still suffered a number of severe losses. Iwa's explosion corps sent a squad into the exams and that squad blew up the Uchiha police station. We lost over 40 Uchiha policemen including Fugaku Uchiha. A note is that Sasuke Uchiha is currently Mia and is believed alive since his body has not been located. His team members were rendered unconscious during the invasion and could provide no further information. The Akamichi battle group lost 8 members while holding off the snake summons. The Hyuga lost 18 members with many more in the hospital. There were also 232 deaths in our shinobi forces and 420 of our shinobi were injured. The third Hokage is still in critical condition in the hospital. Tsunade and Shizune Senju were working to neutralize the poison, but it is proving difficult. Lord Third has been put into a medically induced coma to buy time and prevent the spread of the poison. It is unknown if he will survive. There are 5 major gaps in our village wall. Tenzo was able to plug them up, but we will need to repair the outer walls as soon as possible. The fighting in the city was held to a minimum, but there was still damage scattered throughout the village. That concludes my summary. Thank you, Shikaku. Itachi said before he looked around this civilian council. I want you to understand something. Our forces held off a joint attack by a numerically superior force that had 2 Jinchuriki with minimal losses. This was in large part due to the efforts of the very man you just attempted to persecute. But Lord Hokage, what if he loses control again and there are not enemy forces for him to vent the Kyuubi's anger and hatred on? Then it will be our children and families. One civilian said before the Anbu knocked the person out and cut out their tongue. Itachi stood up and flared his chakra. I will not say this again. You do not have permission to speak out of turn. You will speak when spoken to or when I request your worthless opinions. Remove that counselor and take him to the hospital. A couple flickers of movement and a deep breath later, Itachi continued. You cowards let your fear rule you instead of thinking with your brains. Naruto snapped due to a traumatic event. Even when he snapped, he only took his rage out on Iwa's Jinchuriki and Kage. Those were the only two affected by this, yummy, personality. Clan heads, please inform these fools exactly what the Senju clan does for our village. Chusa Akamichi stood up. Well, Naruto leads his peers in training outside of the training they receive by their Jonin sensei. It has produced remarkable results. His seals prevent our food from spoiling and allow us to keep it on the market longer. This lowers food prices for everyone. Sheep Aburame stood up. Naruto has held the Aburame clan to develop new species of R bugs that provide a great increase in our battle strength. He has also created new habitats and forests for us. Hiyashi Hyuga stood up. Naruto Senju removed the caged bird seal from my clan and saved my life, as well as the lives of my daughters. His sealing tags are responsible for the temperature control in your homes, the women's clothing that reduces back pain, the advanced storage seals used by our shinobi and merchants, the barrier seals that protected our civilians and dignitaries during the invasion, the screening tags at our front gates, the truth seals, the medical stasis seals that are currently saving the life of Lord Third, and the communication scrolls like the one Ambassador Kigawa is using to communicate in real time with the Fire Daimyo. I am sure I missed a few, but that would be the cost of the Senju clan leaving our village. Makoto Uchiha stood this time. He also created a Sharingan protection that prevents the forced removal of the Sharingan. It also disables transplanting of the Sharingan to any non-Uchiha. The Senjus were working closely with the Uchiha police to make Konoha safer. Inoichi stood this time. Naruto created new plants in my greenhouses that we are harvesting and selling to the hospital. They have reduced our need to import medicinal ingredients by nearly 30%. Itachi held up a hand. Thank you, that should be enough. Let me remind you that the Senju clan has not even been in Konoha for a full year yet and they have already had this much of an impact. I grow weary of this council meeting, and I see no need to include this whole joint council in decisions of war. I will reconvene this council when Lord Kinji approves my changes, and our response has been formed. You will be notified of our decisions at the proper time. Now leave. The council was left in a stunned silence as the minor clan heads and civilian council began to shuffle out. That was a lot to think about and chew on. The clan heads filtered out of the room and left Itachi sitting there with Jiraiya and Ambassador Kigawa. Is there a reason you are still here, Jiraiya? Itachi asked monotonously. Jiraiya puffed his chest out, which made him cough due to the pain remaining from Tsunade's blow. After recomposing himself, Jiraiya answered, I am still the spy master for Konoha. I should be involved when we are talking about war with Iwagakure. Otogakure is still an unknown, but since they are led by Orochimaru they are a dire threat as well. Very well, do you have any new information to provide to the Fire Lord or myself? Itachi asked. Well, no, I just wanted to know how you are going to handle things moving forward. Iwa is demanding Naruto's blood and threatening war. Jiraiya answered shakily. Yes, the country that violated an international treaty and launched an attack on the Chunin exams with daimyos and dignitaries from many minor countries present is making demands. So what? Ambassador Kigawa asked with a deadpan look. Jiraiya blanched. Are we really going to go to war with Iwa? No, but neither will they go to war with us. They know that they cannot win. Even without Naruto, Iwa would no longer be able to pose a significant threat to us. Onoki and Han were two of their 3S rank shinobi, and they made the fatal mistake of pissing Naruto off. They further alienated themselves from Kumo and they were already unofficial enemies of Suna. They can make demands all they wish, but it does not require that we listen to them. Itachi summarized his thoughts. Itachi, it is dangerous to back such an enemy into a corner. Jiraiya cautioned before he was dismissed by Itachi. The Uchiha prodigy Hokage had a massive headache, and he knew it wasn't going to let up anytime soon. Underground base in Rice Country. In a dark room that was dimly lit by torches, two golden orbs glistened with fury in the dark. The Senju brat had foiled Orochimaru's plans of destruction and revenge. He He couldn't even take solace in that fact that his sensei was dead because the old monkey was still clinging to life in the hospital. Orochimaru hissed at the thought, completely enraged by his failure. He cared not for the dead, nor did he care for Iwa's losses. He cared only that the gods created the Senju boy and said boy ruined everything. Orochimaru was broken from his musings as the door to his chambers creaked open. He could smell his faithful servant Kabuto and he was awaiting his report. The right hand of Orochimaru got down on one knee and reported to his master. Lord Orochimaru, Sasuke Uchiha's Phase 1 curse mark was implanted successfully. He will need a couple months for it to integrate into his chakra network before we could safely upgrade it to Stage 2. The boy seemed pleased with the increase in his power. Moving on, we have still not heard from the Sound 4. We presume they are captured or dead. Kimimaro did not need to activate his curse mark during the invasion, so he is stable at this time. He was able to kill a number of Konoha Jonin and Chunin before returning with Sasuke. You should know that the Uchiha clan suffered great losses during the invasion, but I have not yet informed Sasuke. His father perished to Iwa's demolition corps. Orochimaru hissed in a mix of pleasure and disgust. And what of Iwa's forces? Kabuto pushed up his glasses and hesitated a bit. Iwa's forces were decimated. Of the original Oto and Iwa forces, there were just over 500 survivors. Iwa still has Roshi and Kitsuchi to run things, but they were weakened significantly. Additionally, Konoha has Kuretsuchi, Kitsuchi's daughter, held as a political prisoner. Konoha must be greatly weakened if the battle dragged out for so long. What of Konoha's forces? Orochimaru asked, hissing with anticipation for the damage report. Kabuto shifted uncomfortably. Actually, Lord Orochimaru, after the Kyuubi Jinchuriki calmed down, he went to the front lines. He did one of Lord First's combination jutsus and decimated the attacking forces. It is unknown how many casualties Konoha took, but best estimates suggest around 12 to 15%. There was also minimal damage to the city and civilian populations. They were ready for us to invade. Orochimaru hissed in disgust at the news and lashed out with some of his snake summons that wrapped around Kabuto's body and hissed angrily at him. You are telling me I lost 5 boss-level summons for less than 15% of Konoha's forces. Manda will eat me for such transgressions. My deepest apologies, Lord Orochimaru. Kabuto attempted to bow while he was wrapped up by the snakes. Put the Senju boy in the bingo books and find a way for me to get to him. He would be the perfect host, but the Kyuubi would prevent such a thing. If I can get some genetic material, I could create the ultimate vessel in time. Orochimaru appeared to lose himself in his fantasies. Well then, you will be pleased to know that he has 2 girlfriends. One of them was the reason that Naruto went berserk in the first place. However, Ino Yamanaka still remains. Kabuto said, hoping to inspire his master's conniving mind. Interesting. In some cave at a yet unknown location, 10 figures were having a meeting. 2 of these figures looked real while the rest appeared to be some sort of astral projections. They were each standing on a finger of a statue that was chained up and had 9 eyes that were closed. Each member wore a dark black cloak with red clouds that denoted them as members of the Akatsuki. They were just briefed by a plant-like creature on the events of the failed Konoha invasion. So, the leader with strange, purple-ringed eyes began, the Kyuubi Jinchuriki is much stronger than we planned for, and the 5 tails was killed during the invasion. Yes, Lord Pain, the creature answered. This will disrupt our plans. According to what we know, the 5 tails will not reform for another 3 to 5 years. When it does reform, it will do so in Konoha, which has become harder to spy on thanks to the Senju seals. Does that summarize the current state of affairs? The leader asked. Then we will need to adjust our plans. Perhaps we can take advantage of Iwa's weakened state. A hunched man wearing the robes suggested. Sasori my man, that might be an artistic idea, A blond man with a strange monocle said enthusiastically. Perhaps it would be wise to recruit Iwa's forces to our cause. With Aim and Iwa, we could begin recruiting the other minor nations. A familiar figure with blank white eyes suggested. The leader seemed to ponder the suggestion. He had worked with Hizashi for the past 6 months and found that the rogue Hyuga was knowledgeable when it came to politics. Iwa has refused our services in the past. The old Tsuchikage blamed us for Deidara's defection. How would you recruit them to our cause? That is easy. We have a shared enemy. They hated Naruto's father and now they will hate and fear him just as much. The boy may be strong, but we are all ranked shinobi. Iwa will not be able to refuse such an increase in their strength. Hizashi explained. A shark-like man with blue skin chimed in, I mean, what else do we have to do? The 3 tails is missing somewhere in Kiri and the 5 tails is likewise dead in Konoha. We cannot gather the Biju and hold them indefinitely while we wait for them to reform. You both make good points. We will work to bring Iwa under our thumb while the beasts are reforming. I will call for another meeting when we have a plan made. For now, continue taking jobs and earning money for our cause. Pain said. Yes, Leader Sama. The apparitions chorused before fading out of existence. The 2 remaining members were joined by a man in a swirling orange mask wearing the Akatsuki cloak. This is inconvenient. For our plans to be delayed in such a manner because of a single boy. Pain looked dispassionately at the newcomer. Madara, we cannot change what has already happened. Will you be able to get the new Tsuchikage under your control? Madara scoffed. My pawn in Kiri is now useless. He had been turtling up in Kirigakure and losing the war. My Koto Amatsukami will take a little while to recharge, but if we build some trust in Iwa then it will be easier for me to manipulate him. The blue-haired woman with a paper flower in her hair and a lip stud spoke up, can you not use your Kamui to infiltrate Konoha and eliminate the boy? The boy wields powers almost equivalent to Hashirama. I would not be able to get in and out quickly enough. To make matters worse, whatever seals he has put up in his compound in the Hokage Tower make it so that I cannot warp in there. I am also tagged each time I have entered Konoha by the barrier protecting it and Anbu respond within minutes. Infiltrating Konoha is no longer a viable option. Madara said in a frustrated tone. How did the boy know about your ability? It is impressive that he found a way to neutralize it, but how did he know about it in the first place? Pain asked. According to our spies, the seal placed on him by his father endowed some of his father's knowledge onto the boy. It is likely that Minato warned him about my ability because he was the only one that ever lived after seeing me use it. The man in the mask said with disdain. The girl chuckled and the serene noise echoed around the cave. The mighty Madara brought down by a 13-year-old boy. That is enough, Conan. Madara is our ally. He should focus on getting Earth Country under our control. I will assign another team to Konoha. Senju Compound, 1 week later. After I was diagnosed with MPD, I phoned my boss to tell him that I needed some time off. After receiving deadpan looks from everyone in the living room, she continued, "You're self-employed, you stupid bastard," I said. Crickets, the whole mindscape went deafeningly silent. Rias sat there with an expectant look as everyone in the mindscape looked at her with blank, deadpan looks. Holy shit guys, we need to get out of here. Naruto said in a deadpan voice with a hint of horror mixed in. Oh, I got one. Kurama said with a shit-eating grin. You know what the worst thing about MPD is? Kurama looks around like a kid with the funniest answer in the world only to get blank looks in return. I used to enjoy masturbating, but I can't get into it lately because I am really not into orgies. Let me out. Yami screamed in terror. Ruto tried letting us out yesterday. Mama bopped me on the head and sent me right back in here. Hikari whined. Yes, Mama made it clear you are not to use your chakra until she says so. Yosuke added remorsefully. I miss Anko, I haven't been laid in almost 2 weeks. Rias whined. I have never been laid. Yami added after calming down, what's all the hype about? Yami had come out of his shell a bit. He still seemed like a darker and more brutal Sasuke, before he turned into a backstabbing, world-ending bastard, of course. Rias looked at Yami, weren't you a part of Naruto last go-around? He showed me Tamari, Ino, Rias got a perverted giggle on her face and blood trickled. And Hinata, oh, sweet Hinata. I still can't believe you let that one go. Definition of lady in the street and a freak in the bed. Yami looked to Naruto curiously, why don't I remember that? Naruto shrugged, best guess we have is that you are a part of me, but you only pulled out the memories that reinforced your core personality. The happiest I have been when I was with each of them before they died. You want the memories. It might make you think life is actually worth living. Yami nodded hesitantly, fuck it, it's not like it can make life any fucking worse. Naruto walked over to him and placed his hand on Yami's black spiky hair and concentrated on sharing some of the good memories. He kept his hand there for at least 10 minutes as Naruto processed the memories flashing at 10 times normal speed through his own mind. As Yami watched, a tear began trickling out of his eyes. It didn't take long for one tear to turn to a steady trickle as Yami experienced the positive side of life for the first time. Naruto left the mindscape, trusting his alters to help Yami process things and decide what to do. He sighed as he rose out of his bed, missing the blonde beauties that he had woken up to for the past week. Evidently, he had slept in, and they were already out and about. The Subaku siblings were adamant on staying with Naruto until they figured out what the stupid council was going to do. Naruto tried to shove the negative feelings out of his mind by smothering his face in Temari's pillow and inhaling deeply. She had such a soft, sweet scent that just tickled the back of his nose and filled him with fond memories. After a minute, Naruto kicked himself up out of bed, completely at a loss for what to do. He was more than tired of listening to his mama, he just wanted to use his chakra again. It no longer felt like his tenketsu were burning and his body was no longer sore. He could feel his power returning and knew that he already had more than anyone else in his generation. He had tried to get a CrossFit workout going only to be slammed into the ground by the slug Sannin, which was another source of frustration. Naruto's daily routine was shattered, and he couldn't do anything that he typically loved to do. Combine that with a form of house arrest and Naruto was more than ready to flash the wave and say fuck Konoha. Later on, as he was thinking, Tsunade walked into the living room with Temari and Naruto could tell something had her hot and bothered. Temari shifted into her cuddle spot with Naruto as he looked up to see the scowl affixed to Tsunade's face. Alright mama, spill it. What's got you in such a mood? Naruto asked softly, trying to keep it casual. Tsunade reached into her pocket and tossed a black book at Naruto. He caught it and immediately knew he was looking at the newest copy of the bingo book. Page 1, Tsunade grunted. Before Naruto even opened the book, he commented, "Oh, wow, page 1. My first entry." As Naruto read with Temari looking over his shoulder, Tsunade replied, "Look bud, you killed a lot of people, and you did it in a spectacular fashion. You need to be careful." Naruto flipped the book open to its first page and began reading. Naruto Uzumaki Senju. Rank. S. Rank. Age. 13. Family. Parents, Minato Namikaze, deceased. Kushina Uzumaki, deceased. Known relatives, Tsunade Senju, Sannin, Konoha. Shizune Senju, adopted sister. Yosuke Senju, adopted brother. Rias Senju, adopted sister. Hikari Senju, adopted sister. Titles: Sage, Unknown Summons, Heir to Daimyo of Whirlpool Country, Lord Protectorate of Wave Country, Honorary Citizen of Sunagakure. Bio: Naruto Senju is the Jinchuriki of Kyuubi no Kitsune and is a genin of Konohagakure. He grew up outside of the village, spent most of his youth in Suna and Wave and returned to Konoha at age 12. He is on Genin Team 8 under Itachi Uchiha, the 5th Hokage of Konoha. He is a seal master that is credited with many new seals sold at the Senju Shinobi equipment stores and their affiliates. Achievements: Killed Onoki of both scales, 3rd Tsuchikage of Iwagakure during invasion of Konoha. Killed Han, Jinchuriki of 5 tails, during invasion of Konoha. Killed over 1,000 shinobi during invasion of Konoha. Abilities: Ninjutsu. Mokuten, S rank. Sweden, A rank. Doden, A rank. Futon, A rank. High-level mastery of shadow and wood clones. Used jutsu credited to 1st Hokage. Witnessed using chakra chains of the Uzumaki clan. Taijutsu, A rank, styles unknown. Kenjutsu, S rank, demonstrated high-level mastery during invasion of Konoha. Genjutsu, unknown. Fuinjutsu, master class. Unknown combat abilities. Bounty: $5 million Otogakure dead or alive, $10 million Iwagakure alive. Naruto whistled after he read the bounties, then he looked up in a deadly serious manner at Tsunade. That is pretty thorough. I am fairly certain I didn't show all that during the exams or invasion. Tsunade nodded with a frown on her face. Yeah bud, I was thinking the same thing. They also brought our family into it. Naruto frowned as Tsunade's words registered with him. In that deluge of information, he forgot the implications for those he cares about most. Yeah, Suna can take care of itself and Gaara and Temari are coming with us on the training trip. My friends should be safe here. That just leaves Wave, and I am not going to lie, that worries me a lot. Tsunade's frown turned into a growl. I was thinking the same thing. Any chance you can upgrade the barrier seals around Wave? It's not that easy, mama. The bigger the barrier, the bigger power source is required. I can work Senjutsu into it, but it still won't hold up against S-rank opponents. I would need to add new barriers around civilian centers, beef up the screening at the ports, install a better chakra storage seal, I mean the list goes on. Tamari put a comforting hand on his shoulder. Look, Ruto, don't try to do everything at once. We will be in Wave a couple times throughout our trip, and you have the Horizon beacons now. They can survive until you arrive. She's right, bud. We will figure it out. Just stay positive. Honestly, mama, I am so close to leaving Konoha and just not looking back. I would rather go to Wave and stay there to protect it. With that last thought, Tsunade walked to the kitchen to get some sake to help her deal with her rapidly growing headache before she went to yet another council meeting. The main thing that prevented him from up and leaving Konoha for good was Ino. She couldn't leave the village without being declared a missing nin, and Kinji said that she would need to be his wife for Naruto's immunity to apply to her. Then there were his friends, who were absolutely amazing this time around. The monotony of the week had been regularly punctuated with his friends stopping by and informing him of what was going on in the village. He learned a couple things from them. 1. The civilians were terrified and gossiping about him. No surprise there, Naruto was actually nervous about regaining his chakra and senses and going out into the village. Memories of the past threatened to haunt him if the villagers looked at him with those hate-filled gazes again. 2. The damage to the village wasn't that bad, but all genin were on cleanup duty until further notice. At least he was able to prevent the worst of the damage this time around. 3. Hinata and Shino were promoted to Chunin for their displays in the finals and efforts in the invasion. This made Naruto wonder if the council was actually going to deny him a promotion this time around as well. Ungrateful bastards. 4. Sasuke Uchiha was gone. This made Naruto punch a hole in his wall. Despite his best efforts, the Tem still ended up leaving the village. He was presumed captured, so he wasn't declared a missing nin, but Naruto knew how things would play out. 5. Lord Third was still in the hospital despite Tsunade being there to heal him almost immediately. The poison from the Kusanagi ate away at his chakra network and did serious damage to the old monkey. Naruto realized he wasn't as nearly broken up about it as he was last time around. Naruto was grateful to each one of his friends, and it was for them that he would try to persevere and not abandon Konoha. He has talked about it at length with Tsunade and Shizune, who were both of the mind to leave the village and return to Wave or Suna. Shizune was excited about the idea of going to live with York. Tsunade was excited about wandering the lands again while gambling and training. Evidently, it was a very long week for Tsunade, who was taken out of her hospital duties 3 times in 1 week for stupid, Kami-damned council meetings. Naruto shared more than a few bottles of sake with her on the porch at night as she filled him in. Evidently, during the last council meeting, the civilians had gotten uppity once again, declaring that it wasn't safe for Naruto to be in the village. They said that the Kyuubi had broken the seal and taken over Naruto, which had prompted another outburst from Tsunade. She had come home ranting and raving about how Kaharu and Homura were stoking the fears of the civilians. All in all, Naruto thought that it was time for a training trip. He just didn't know what he should do about Ino and Anko, since Rias wouldn't be able to remain in Konoha if he were out of the village for that long. Then there was Hikari, who had set up roots as the Senju shopkeeper and made friends of her own. Perhaps it was because of Hikari being Naruto's pure side, but he could never deny her anything. Actually, none of the alters nor Kurama could deny her anything. The vibrant blonde was too nice for her own good, and she always put the needs of others before herself, which prompted the others to always consider her needs over the other alters. She was the dear little sister that each of them felt the need to protect and spoil. For the millionth time that week, Naruto sat in the garden and used meditation to reflect upon things and collect his thoughts. All in all, after many internal and external debates, the consensus was split. It was agreed upon that we should remain tied to Konoha because of the friends and relationships that were established. That being said, most agreed that a training trip and break from Konoha would be a good thing for all parties, especially Konoha. Tamari and Gaara declared that they would join the training trip, which would make it more fun this time around. Ino brought the training trip idea up with her parents and they shot her down almost immediately. That was a cause for concern, but Ino had told me that she would support me no matter what. All in all, I think that I should give in to the timeline's demand to leave Konoha and I can use it as an opportunity to get ahead of the Akatsuki. Yeah, that will have to do for now. Elsewhere, Tsunade was having a bad day and she was just praying it didn't get any worse. She thought back over the conversation she just had in Hiruzen's medical room with Itachi, Jiraiya, Shikaku and Hiruzen. "Why have you called me here, Lord Hokage?" Tsunade said calmly with her arms crossed under her bust. It annoyed her to no end that she could feel Jiraiya's eyes on her breasts. Itachi looked at Hiruzen and then met Tsunade's gaze. "Well, quite frankly, I asked you to meet here because I feared you would destroy the council chambers along with the Hokage Tower if we talked in there." This earned a HMPH from Tsunade. "Calm down, Haim, it is not all bad," Jiraiya said while his eyes fought a losing battle against the pull of gravity. "My eyes are up here, Jiraiya. So help me, if you do not correct your behavior I will remove your sight to help an old teammate resist temptation." Tsunade growled, which made Jiraiya shudder and avert his gaze. "Calm down, Tsunade. Those threats are not needed," Hiruzen said wearily, which earned a glare from the slug Sannin. "We are getting distracted. Tsunade, the reason I called you here is because the civilian council and the civilians will continue to make matters worse if Naruto stays here. The civilians are terrified from feeling the Kyuubi's chakra again and the civilian council is doing little to assuage those worries. My major concern is that if we continue on this path then we will lose you and Naruto for good," Itachi stated calmly. Tsunade scoffed, "Oh, this is rich. Well, we are ready to leave. Tell us when we have to go." Jiraiya stepped forward. "No, Haim. You cannot go. We need you here to run the hospital. I will take Naruto on a training trip and give him a much-needed break from the village. This will let me get in touch with my spy network." Jiraiya's thoughts were disrupted by exaggerated laughter from Tsunade. He paused and cocked an eyebrow at her. "Tsunade, please, hear us out," Hiruzen pleaded. Tsunade's laughter halted abruptly. No. You three listen and hear me out. Naruto will not go on this trip with Jiraiya. He would sooner use the Hiraishin and go off on his own." In her heart, she knew this wasn't fair, but she had her memories of how Konoha treated her grandson in the last go-round, and she had been resonating with those memories for the whole week as she was forced to tolerate the villagers' whispers. Jiraiya looked downcast and he spoke softly, "Why? Why does the kid hate me so much?" "He has his reasons, Jiraiya. For starters, after ignoring him for most of his life, you then betrayed his trust and spilt the first major secret he shared with you," Tsunade said back, her tone lacking the scorn and venom it had been carrying. "Well, Tsunade, I cannot send Naruto out without a representative of the village that would actually be capable of protecting him. There is Iwa and the Akatsuki to worry about," Itachi explained. "Am I not a representative of this village?" Tsunade turned toward Itachi with a cocked eyebrow and balled fists. "Calm down, Tsunade. It is clear to everyone that you would prioritize Naruto's needs and wishes over Konoha's. You should be grateful to have someone as accomplished as Jiraiya willing to take on, train and protect your son," Hiruzen said. "No," Tsunade said in a deadly whisper. "If Naruto goes, I go with him. The Senju clan will move out together. If the perverted toad wants to tag along, fine. That is the only concession you will get from me." Hiruzen adopted a look crossed between rage and desperation. "Tsunade, we can't afford to have the two remaining Sanins out of the village at the same time." "Well then you should have thought about that before you started letting the sheep dictate your actions, O wise shepherd," Tsunade shot back sarcastically. Itachi sighed and rubbed his temples. He really didn't like being the Hokage. "Both of you calm down. Lord Third, you know as well as I do that we can't stop her from leaving. Grow a spine, Itachi. She is a registered shinobi of this village," Hiruzen shouted before clutching his chest in pain. "Calm yourself, old man, before you break your stitches. I am now not giving you an option. The Senju family will be leaving Konoha for a training trip. I have the Sanin's travel rights and express permission from Kinji. We will leave in 2 weeks' time once Naruto is completely recovered, so, do with that what you will. Now, I need a drink." Tsunade turned on her heel and shinned out of the hospital room. "Fuck," Jiraiya said. "Itachi, you can't let her go." Jiraiya needs this time with Naruto to instill the will of fire in him. Hiruzen said in a firm tone. No, Lord Third, I disagree with you. If you didn't repeatedly get in his way, then the will of fire would have already taken hold. You are so desperate when it comes to Naruto that you miss the forest for the tree. It is you that have driven him away. It is his friends that will bring him back. Itachi replied equally as firm. That's not fair to Sensei, Itachi. Jiraiya stood up for Hiruzen who had sunk into his hospital bed. And you, Jiraiya, because you constantly feel the need to defend his actions and force your own beliefs on him, he feels like he can't even start forming a relationship with you. You two fools have done nothing except tell him what he needs to do. You have told him of nothing except the duties you think that he must shoulder. Because he has to shoulder them. Jiraiya and Hiruzen shouted simultaneously. Itachi shook his head. If you do not wish to heed my warning, then that is your decision. Just know that it will end with you costing Konoha the Senju clan. Then it is your duty as Hokage to ensure that doesn't happen. Hiruzen shouted. Itachi's face turned dark, and his tone grew menacing as his Sharingan flared to life. Enough. You two are so stuck in your ways that you don't understand the situation we are facing. Naruto, Tsunade and the whole Senju clan have an authority that exceeds our own backing them. Not only that, but Naruto also has the means to defy me in a contest of strength and will. Force is not an option. The sooner you two realize that the better off we will be. Now, I am going to go do paperwork. It is much less stressful than trying to get through to you two. Tsunade's shadow clone popped, and she processed the information on her walk home. She just wanted to be kicked back on the beach next to the Senju villa in Wave Country. Everyone there actually appreciated what her family did for them and didn't act like it was some entitlement. Sighing, she prepared herself for the conversation with Naruto and the altars. She ignored the stares and whispered conversations for as long as she could before she gave up and shunned Shin the rest of the way home. Naruto was waiting for her in the Senju gardens, and she saw him beckon her over as she passed through the gates. She sat down behind him and pulled him back into her chest and placed her chin on his head. What is it, Ruto? She asked softly. I got a message from Mei. The rebels won and the war is over. He spoke in a hushed tone. Isn't that good news? Tsunade asked, feeling like she was missing something. When they took over the city, Yugura wasn't there. He was in his office 1 minute and gone the next, according to some of his prior officials. Sound familiar? Naruto asked. Shit. Tsunade whispered, her chin still on top of Naruto's head. So, the Akatsuki has Isobu. Most likely. They may even have Yugura still alive since he was under their control anyways. Well, this isn't the first deviation in the timeline. Well, I have news too. Tsunade wrapped her arms tighter around Naruto. We will be taking that training trip. I told Hiruzen, Itachi and Jiraiya that it is no longer an option. Naruto lifted himself out of Tsunade's embrace and turned around and faced her. His azure orbs glistened with a soft blue as she peered into the depths of his soul. She waited as she could tell he was talking internally. We were ready for it. How long do we have to say goodbye to our friends? 2 weeks. I'm sorry that it came to this, kiddo. It's fine, mama. I went into sage mode today, he trailed off with that. Tsunade was torn between being concerned and being angry. She settled with being both. And, she asked in a soft, yet firm, tone. I felt their fear. I knew from the moment I woke up what was going to happen. The only real question is, will we be coming back here? Kurama and I also felt something that I will need to go check out. He answered. I think we should come back, kiddo. After a couple years they will grow out of their fear. Especially when they hear all of the good things you are going to do for this world. Tsunade soothed him in a soft voice. What else did you feel though? Kokuo. Naruto choked out. It was never my intention to kill Han, but I snapped. If it weren't for Granny Chio, I don't know if I would have made it back to myself. I know you would have. You are so much stronger than I have any right to ask you to be, kiddo. Don't forget who you are fighting for. Don't forget what makes this all worth it. Tsunade leaned in and put her forehead against Naruto's. Naruto finished the embrace and rested his head in the nook of Tsunade's neck. I won't. And if I do, then you will be there to smack me upside the head. Damn straight, brat. So, where you wanna go? Tsunade asked. Well, I promised Uncle Kinji I would come out and spend some time with him and Kaori in the capital. Tamari won't like that, but she will be there with us so it will be okay. Wait, say that again. Tamari. She's coming with us? Tsunade asked. Naruto nodded into her shoulder. Yup, I bribed Papa Raza with some cool seals I developed and promised that we would be available to take missions. Her and Gaara are free to tag along. Kankuro wants to use that time to master his puppetry. He took Granny Chio's loss the hardest and he wants to honor her. Plus, safety in numbers, right? Tsunade chuckled and shook her head before placing a kiss on top of Naruto's head. Leave it to you, brat. You never cease to amaze me. Yeah, well, the way I see it, Gaara has to be ready to deal with Iwa and the Akatsuki. After the damage I dealt them, they will take a while to recover, but it also means that war is imminent. So, I am going to have Gaara and Tamari train with us. If you could leave some scrolls for Ino and Hinata I would appreciate it. Sure thing, kiddo. Where else are we going to go? Tsunade asked. We should go out to Kiri in a couple months once things have settled down. I am thinking that we really need to locate Utakata and Seiken before the Akatsuki does. Then I need to stop by Taki and help Fu. I would like to spend some time in Suna and Wave. Maybe our friends could come visit us in Wave. I will pay for a mission to get them all out there. Then, I want to spend some time in Kumo, maybe head out to Turtle Island again. I never got to visit the Sage's Temple last time around and Kurama says that I should go there. I also want to pop by AIM and send some wood clones in to try and make contact with Nagato and Konan as well. That's quite the itinerary. I am not too sure about going into AIM though. Tsunade said cautiously. Yeah, well all we need to do is get to AIM's border. The messengers we have sent have been refused or killed so I don't even know if he has gotten my messages. Naruto replied in an unsure tone. Then why don't we reach out to Hizashi? Tsunade asked. We will have to run into him. I haven't gotten the chance to give him a communication scroll and I don't know where he is or which Biju he is assigned to. Frustration leaked into Naruto's tone. And I really want to give him a way to contact Neji. That change in the timeline really feels like it was my fault. You can't keep the whole world on your shoulders, kiddo. It doesn't work that way. Now, enough serious talk. Let me run a scan on you and we will see how your body reacts to using chakra again. Then, you should use your remaining time and spend it with your friends. Thanks, Mama. Does that mean I am no longer under house arrest? He asked eagerly. Yeah, be careful out there though. Don't let the ungrateful bastards win. Tsunade finished with a resigned caution. Inside Naruto's mind, everyone was rejoicing at the thought of getting out of their containment. It was truly a long week and a half stuck inside the seal for the altars that had grown used to living their own lives. Rias wanted to go see Anko, Hikari was being hush-hush about who she wanted to see, Yosuke simply wanted the opportunity to train some more and stretch his legs. Naruto had been writing to Himawari on his behalf, but Yosuke said it wasn't the same when he had to talk to her with everyone else watching. Nobody argued that point. Kurama wanted to get out and share a drink with Tsunade. Nobody knew it yet, not even Naruto, but Kurama had started to develop something real for Tsunade and it wasn't as one-sided as one might expect. Finally, Yami wanted the chance to experience life outside of the seal. He would be contained to the compound because he would probably lose himself to the negative feelings of the villagers. Nobody wanted that, but they did want him to get a chance at living his own life. He had promised to behave himself and he seemed excited when Naruto said that he would summon some people from Tensura over. He requested Shuna, which Naruto thought was funny. Free at last. That night, Naruto had sent out shadow clones to his friends to let them know that CrossFit would be starting again tomorrow and that he had something to tell them. He also let everyone out of the seal after Tsunade cleared it with him. Naruto could feel a greater strain than normal, but it wasn't anything he couldn't handle. It was nice to get some actual alone time with Tamari and Ino. That night after dinner, Tamari and Ino surprised him by dragging him into the private onsen at the Senju guest house. He told them about everything that had happened and what the plans were moving forward. Tamari was happy about it, but Ino was close to breaking. They each embraced her in a hug and told her that they would stay in touch. Naruto promised to set up a long-range Hiraishin beacon in her room and he would stop by and visit at least once a week. That cheered Ino up and she reverted back into her perky self. Speaking of perky, after the serious talk was over with, Naruto realized that both of the beautiful teenage blondes were naked with him in a private hot spring. The girls saw him blush furiously and decided that there was no better time than the present to break the ice. They got a couple bottles of sake and played a couple rounds of truth or dare. It was 2 bottles in that Temari and Ino shared their first kiss. It wasn't tenuous and there was almost no hesitation as tongues flashed and danced between the two of them. The blushes on each of their faces were so beautiful that it instantly became one of Naruto's most cherished memories. Thank you, Kami. The next morning, the whole crew was present for CrossFit and after a grueling workout Naruto told everyone what was going on. There were a lot of people that were unhappy about the situation, and it led to some pretty colorful conversation. Shikamaru was the first to speak after hearing Naruto out and his tone was lacking the usual laziness in it. Naruto, I know it is troublesome to say this, but this is bullshit. I admit, it was more than unsettling when I felt the Kyuubi's aura, but that wasn't your fault. It's all too damn troublesome. Ino and Choji put comforting hands on Shika's shoulders. It is most unyouthful. You saved the village with your flames of youth, and this is how the unyouthful villagers thank you. I never thought that I would see Konoha's flames flicker down to mere embers. Guy shouted as Lee nodded along with him. Naruto, you have done too much for me to remain silent on this issue. What can the Hyuga clan do to make this right? Neji asked in a firm, no bullshit tone. Yes, Ruto, what can brother and I do to make this right? The whole Hyuga clan will rally to support you. Hinata chimed in with a slightly desperate tone. Naruto held up his hands at this point to get the group's attention. Guys, I thank you for your support. All of the negativity isn't coming from the shinobi clans. It is almost entirely the civilian population and a couple of the shinobi traumatized by the Kyuubi attack. I can't stay here when there is this much hate, fear and negativity. It will do nothing except make matters worse because my abilities make me feel all of it. It's illogical. Even when you lost control, you never attacked an ally. Shino said while his hive was buzzing agitatedly, and this will delay our experiments as well. Don't worry. Before I go, I am going to give each of you a gift. I am also planning on having you guys come out to Wave for a mission, at least once a year. If you need to get in touch with me, Ino will have a communication scroll to me and Hinata will have one to Gaara. This comment earned some raised eyebrows and curious looks from the group. Hinata was really missing her old big hoodie that she used to be able to hide in. Her blush was surpassing tomato levels, and her chin was tucked into her chest. Ruto. Brother, I would appreciate it if you didn't go out of your way to embarrass Hinata. Gaara said in his usual monotone while sand was leaking out of the seal on his wrist. Teehee. Naruto said before jumping up and taunting Gaara. Everyone watched the two brothers dodge around the training grounds in a display of sibling rivalry. Temari, Ino and Hinata had wistful smiles on their faces as they watched Naruto duck in and out of Gaara's sand. Eventually, Naruto was caught around the ankle and suspended in the air by Gaara who was standing there staring at him with his arms crossed. That was when the real Naruto tapped him on the shoulder before disappearing back underground. Gaara grunted and made a lifting motion with his palms open, and sand began rising out of the ground in crazy volumes. One cloud of sand was carrying Naruto who then disappeared in a yellow flash. The game continued for more than a couple minutes before Gaara grew tired of trying to catch the slippery bastard. Oh, please Gaara, I could outrun squads of Anbu when I was 5. Naruto said while trying to catch his breath. I thought we agreed the flying thunder god was cheating. Gaara said in a pouty tone that earned laughs from all of those watching the youthful display. Naruto shrugged, all is fair between brothers. Anyway guys, I have one request I want to make of each of you. Everyone straightened up and got back into serious mode. I am putting Guy in charge of CrossFit. I want everyone to continue training and getting stronger, but not just physically. We are likely going to be in an active war within the next 3 to 4 years once Iwa recovers from their losses. Trust Guy, Asuma and all of the other veterans. Don't waste a single day that you aren't out on missions. Push yourselves and be ready for what's to come. I will be creating seals, weapons and other devices to help you and your clans. I will send them along when I can. If you need to give something to Ruto, come to me. Ino said proudly. Why you, Ino? Ten asked. Can you guys promise to keep a secret? Even from the council? Naruto asked and saw everyone get nervous and fidget a bit. Never mind then, just know that if you need to reach me go through Ino. Asuma, Guy and Kurenai, if an emergency comes up know that I can be here in a flash. I will be giving each squad enhanced Horizon beacons. These tags are bigger so that I can sense them from further away. If you are in dire straits, you call me. Understand? Naruto said in a deadly serious tone. Don't worry about us, Naruto. You just go out there and get stronger. We will keep them safe until you return. Asuma said in an admittedly manly tone. Alright, well that is all until this evening. I will make time for each of you. Tonight, go home and ask your clans to place their seal orders. I will work to make as many as I can before I go. Tell your parents that there will be a 30% discount on orders placed in the next 3 days. Naruto said. This earned excitement from each member of the CrossFit group. Naruto, Hiyashi wishes for you to apply weight and resistance seals to each member of the Hyuga. The increase in strength, speed and agility is invaluable to the Jukin and I know he will approve this. Neji said, standing up in excitement. Very well, just remind me how many members that is again. Naruto said wearily. 86 active members. Hinata informed him, which earned a whistle from Asuma and a, very troublesome, from Shikamaru. My father will place an order as well. The temperature and humidity maintenance seals are crucial to our hives. Shino said. The Yamanaka women want 100 orders of bras and panties, assorted colors will be fine. Ino chirped. Choji paused mid-bite on a stick of jerky. Naruto, what do you do with bras and panties? Naruto sniggered, well, Choji, why don't you ask your mother? Tell her that I will apply the discount to our women's clothing lines. Ruto, I want 200 high explosive tags. Ten said eagerly while Lee and Guy were shaking their heads so hard in the negative that their hair created black blurs. Oh, and what are we going to do about crafting and etching on equipment? Naruto thought about it for a bit. Ten, my gift to you will be the Uzumaki Fuinjutsu books levels 1 through 6. Level 6 will instruct you on how to craft and etch seals into your equipment. Naruto was instantly tackled in an excited hug from Ten who began placing kisses all over his faces. Once Tamari and Ino's shock wore off, they ripped her off of their man and pinned her down with fierce glares and ki. Naruto, does this mean you will not be able to perform my operation? Lee asked with a disheartened tone. Nope, Mama and I will be scheduling your operation for next week. Naruto said with a massive smile on his face. Now, no more spoiling my gifts. As I said, I will make time for each of you. Now, scram and go do missions or train. Hokage's office, 3 hours later. Naruto hopped in through the Hokage's office window to see Itachi and a couple shadow clones hard at work. Itachi set down his stamp and pen and dismissed the shadow clones before smiling at Naruto. Hey, Ruto, it is good to see you up and about again. What brings you to my office today? Itachi said in a friendly tone. Well, sensei, I didn't see you at CrossFit this morning. I am sure Tsunade told you, or maybe not, but we will be leaving in 2 weeks. My professional reason for coming is to notify you of this and to take last-minute sealing requests. Naruto said in a neutral tone. Itachi nodded and locked eyes with Naruto, and what is your personal reason for coming? Naruto reclined in the windowsill and met Itachi's gaze. I am sorry for your losses. I heard your father died during the invasion and I heard about your brother. How are you holding up? Itachi broke eye contact and sighed deeply. Honestly, Ruto, it has been a lot to handle. My mother is struggling, and the only thing keeping her sane is her commitment to the clan. Thank you for your sentiment, but if you want to make sure I am okay then it would be best for you not to create so much paperwork. Naruto cocked an eyebrow. And how, pray tell, am I creating paperwork when I have been unconscious or locked in the Senju compounds since the invasion? Itachi glanced at the stacks of paper. Well, that stack there is all about you. The damned civilian council won't shut up about it. Want me to ask Uncle Kin to have them all executed? It would make your life a lot quieter. Naruto asked sarcastically. Itachi chuckled and the Anbu in the room could be heard snickering. No, that will not be necessary. What are your plans for your training trip? The fewer people that know that the better. I will leave a long-range Horizon beacon and a communication scroll. I ask that you not abuse my trust like Jiraiya and Hiruzen. Naruto responded seriously. I understand. I thank you for choosing to trust me. On the subject of Jiraiya, I will need you to take him with you. Naruto glared at Itachi. For what reason? I will have Tsunade there and she is stronger than him at this point. Itachi answered Naruto's glare with one of his own. Because I said so. It is my compromise for this trip. Take it or leave it. You know I could leave it and still leave, right? Naruto shot back. Don't be a brat. Do it for your sensei. Itachi countered. Oh, you are playing the sensei card. Kami damn it Itachi. Naruto's serious tone broke and he sounded more like the child he was. Yes, look Naruto, as much as the civilians are scared of you, the shinobi side wants you to remain in Konoha. Everyone knows that Tsunade would be more than happy to never return to Konoha. This is the council's way of keeping you safe. Not even you believe that Itachi. This is the council's way of keeping tabs on me. Naruto deadpanned only to meet Itachi's impassive stare. Fuck it, fine, the old toad can come along. He is not setting the itinerary and I retain the right to leave him in any bar or brothel he passes out in. Fair. Anything else, Lord Hokage? Naruto snapped back into professional mode. Not for now. I will stop by before you go. Oh, don't kill any of the civilians before you leave. Itachi ended with a smirk that said, I am going to miss you, brat. Sure thing, sensei. Naruto flourished with a bow and a wink at one of the few people he respected in the village. Later that night, Konoha Stadium. Naruto stopped by the compound and joined Tsunade, Kurama and Shizune for some drinks. It was a common occurrence in the Senju family. Bonding over drinks is probably one of humanity's most treasured and ancient pastimes and the Senjus took that to heart. After catching up, Naruto pulled Kurama back into the seal, they had something to check out. Jumping over the roofs of nighttime Konoha, Naruto took in the cool glow of Konoha's street lamps. The calm buzzing sound of Konoha's bars humming from the distant night skies filled his ears. The blushed smiles of couples and the loud, exaggerated expressions of the inebriated males chasing tails. If this was how Konoha was all the time, Naruto could have stayed. He could have found a true home in the village his parents, and his previous self, sacrificed themselves for. He casually chatted with Kurama as he approached the stadium and the bustle of the village died with the distant night. With a little chakra, Naruto jumped up into the night sky with a great leap and landed on the roof of the arena. The repairs were in progress and yet the damage from the cage's battle left scars on the once pristine arena. It's a shame, he could have repaired it himself in a couple hours if only they asked him to. Shaking of the thoughts of distraction, Naruto sat into a meditative posture and Kurama mirrored the action within the seal. Within a minute, the familiar and empowering feeling of Senjutsu chakra filled his coils and ignited his senses. As he spread his aura out and communed with the forest, he took in the whole of Konoha. The strange peace and contentedness of the night calmed his anticipation of events and he gradually filtered out the familiar feeling of Konoha and its forests. What remained was a familiar, yet foreign, feeling. Pain, frustration, pain, anger, pain, hopelessness. These feelings poured into Naruto due to their close proximity. They overwhelmed Naruto's mind and threatened to drive him to madness and despair. Kurama's voice broke through the madness in his mind, clearly shouting to be heard over the raging storm of emotions. Kit, that's my brother. He is here. Kurama yelled with passion filling his baritone voice. A sudden calm, an understanding of what was happening. A desire to help, a desire to save, a desire to protect family and resolve the negative feelings. A deep urge to console the rampaging nature chakra that was unbound by sentience, yet still loosely tethered to it. Naruto closed his eyes just a bit tighter as he focused on absorbing the abundant and out-of-control nature chakra. That's it Ruto, stay calm. Spread those feelings to Kokuo. He is in there somewhere. Kurama soothed him from inside. While concentrating to help Naruto, Kurama couldn't help the old familiar thoughts of his father's last words to him. One day, there will come a boy that will come and calm your hatred. He will guide you and your siblings down the right path. You may all be separated, but the boy will unite you in purpose and guide the world toward the path of Ninshu. He smiled at the memory and redoubled his efforts to help his soul-bound partner. Naruto stayed in a meditative state, pulling the natural energy in through him and cycling it back out. After a while, he was able to distinguish between the ambient natural energy and the energy that composed Kokuo. As he cycled Kokuo's energy, he felt a link being established with the Biju. It was like a whisper across an open field at first, but it grew louder the more that he allowed the Biju's core energy to flitter through his coils. Hey, Q, other than cycle this in and out, how can we help Kokuo? Naruto thought without breaking his meditative trance. I don't know, Kit. I have felt his rage and pain abate while you were cycling the remnants of his energy. I honestly don't know what happens when we die, and I do not know the process of reforming. Kurama answered with frustration biting at his tone. Hey Q, try helping me put Kokuo's chakra into the seal. I have been able to sense him and feel his emotions the longer I meditated. Let's try to bring him in and hold him in the seal. Naruto suggested. If the natural energy starts overloading, then you can purge it. Kurama sighed and shrugged his massive kitsune shoulders. Fine, Kit, let's try it. Naruto altered the natural flow of his chakra and started filtering it in reverse through the seal. His chakra-controlled training allowed him to reverse the flow, so he would absorb as much nature energy as he could handle, release the normal energy and then direct the energy that felt like Kokuo into the seal. This was a slow and painstaking process. Little by little, bit by bit, Kokuo started taking form in the mindscape. After 3 hours of chakra filtering, a cat-sized five-tailed Biju in the form of a dolphin horse could be seen looking up at Kurama in the mindscape. Kurama, what is this? Kokuo asked in a high-pitched and exhausted voice in between pants. This is Naruto, he is the one father told us about. He is absorbing your natural energy, essentially the components of your chakra core, and he is guiding them into the seal. Rest, brother, rest for now. We will speak again once you have your energy back. Kurama said in a soft, gruff tone. Fine, brother, we will talk later. With those words, the dolphin horse laid down and curled up in the mindscape. A pleased smile rested upon Kurama's face, and he decided to check back in with Naruto. The kid needed to stop, his coils were tiring, and his concentration was starting to fail. Kit, that is enough for today. Your body can't take any more, go home and get some rest. We will come back and repeat this again tomorrow. Kokuo has taken form in the mindscape, that is more than we could have hoped for. Kurama said firmly through the mental link. Outside, beads of sweat were dotting Naruto's brow, his chakra coils were burning, and he was mentally exhausted. He didn't like leaving things half-finished, but he didn't have much of a choice left. Fine, Q. I got you. Naruto rose to his feet, sage marking still present on his face, and he saw the sun rising over the horizon, bathing Konoha in the light of a new day. He focused on the Hiraishin beacon in his room and flashed it before passing out on his bed. That was intense and the ramifications of his actions hadn't caught up with Naruto yet. He was now technically the Jinchuriki of Kurama and Kakuo. How would this change things? Thank you for watching. Please remember to like and subscribe and I'll catch you in the next part.